Chapter 449. Changing Furnace. Bang! Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from midair. Ningyu punched out, clashing head-on with Elder Tan. Whoosh! Whoosh! After one move, Ningyu and Old Tan stood on both sides. What? Ningyu's martial arts strength is so strong? Elder Tan is an early-stage yin-yang realm martial artist, but Ningyu actually took one move from him and did not fall into a disadvantageous position. His alchemy skills are superb, and his martial arts strength is formidable. No wonder he is a core disciple of the Sacred Institute of Danwu College. Humph! Old Tan didn't use his full strength, or Ningyu would have been killed long ago. The surrounding discussions clearly infuriated Zhang Tianwen. In his opinion, Ningyu was just a late-stage true martial realm martial artist. Even if his strength was valiant, it was still impossible for him to take a full blow from Elder Tan. Therefore, he concluded that Elder Tan definitely hadn't used his full strength. Elder Tan didn't use his full strength? It is possible. After all, Ningyu is a cultivator invited by the Emperor. If Old Tan uses his full strength, he might accidentally injure Ningyu. No matter what, Ningyu can be proud of himself for being able to take one move from Elder Tan. The discussions of the cultivators in the private rooms reached Old Tan's ears, causing his expression to turn unsightly. Although he hadn't used his full strength, he had still used 80% of it. He was very surprised that Ningyu could block an attack with 80% of his strength. Although Ningyu had resisted his oppressive aura on the street, it was only an oppressive aura. Now it was a solid punch, and Ningyu had actually blocked it. He had originally thought highly of Ningyu, but he did not expect that Ningyu would give him one shock after another. Ningyu, no matter what, I'm going to check your pill furnace today. Old Tan's face was gloomy as he berated. It's not impossible for you to inspect my pill furnace. Suddenly, Ningyu rolled his eyes and said, But I have a request. What request? Elder Tan asked. Very simple, lend me your pill furnace. Ningyu snapped his fingers and said. Hearing Ningyu's words, Old Tan's first reaction was to reject. Soon, he changed his mind. He reached into his robe and pulled out a pill furnace. Ningyu, this is my pill furnace. I'll lend it to you now. Elder Tan casually threw the pill furnace to Ningyu and said in a deep voice, I'll go get you another set of ingredients for refining the true martial pill. You can use this pill furnace to refine the true martial pill. Saying that, Elder Tan was about to leave the room. However, before Elder Tan could walk out of the room, Ningyu waved his hand and said, There's no need to go through so much trouble. I can transfer the medicinal ingredients to your furnace. In the next moment, Ningyu's soul force entered Ouyang Yuan's pill furnace and controlled the medicinal ingredients inside to fly out and float in the air. Elder Tan, check these medicinal herbs and see if there's any problem. If there's no problem, I'll put them into your cauldron, Ningyu said faintly as he pointed at the medicinal herbs in the air. Ningyu was not a fool. He quietly used his perception to probe Elder Tan and discovered that Elder Tan did not have the true martial pill on him. Without the true martial pill on him, it was almost impossible for Elder Tan to frame him. In other words, Elder Tan only had one way to frame him, and that was to leave the room to get the true martial pill. Now that he did not let Elder Tan leave the room, Elder Tan naturally did not have the true martial pill, and it would be very difficult to frame him. Damn it! Sure enough, Ningyu's actions made Elder Tan's face turn ashen. He could not wait to attack Ningyu again and take down Ningyu on the spot. However, he was not that stupid. Since Ningyu had already said so, if he attacked Ningyu again, it would be somewhat of a disadvantage. Helpless, Elder Tan could only release his perception and carefully examine the medicinal pills in the air. Elder Tan, that's enough. If this continues, the eldest prince and Zhang Tianwen will be able to refine the true martial pill. At this moment, the Peak Yuan Core Realm martial artist said lightly. That's right. There's nothing wrong with these medicinal ingredients. Let's let Ning Yu continue refining the true martial pill. Beside him, Ren Xiangtian was also biased towards Ning Yu. Ren Xiangtian really wanted to see how long Ning Yu could use Elder Tan's pill furnace to refine the true martial pill. This was because Elder Tan's pill furnace was not even on the human roll of pill furnaces. It was just an ordinary pill furnace, which was worth at most 100,000 upper-grade yuan crystals. If Ning Yu could quickly refine the true martial pill using this kind of inferior pill furnace, it was enough to show how awesome Ning Yu was. Ning Yu, there's nothing wrong with the medicinal ingredients. You can continue refining the true martial pill. Elder Tan looked at the eldest prince on the other side and curled his lips. Although there's nothing wrong with the medicinal ingredients, I have to carefully examine your pill furnace. Whatever. Ning Yu shrugged and controlled the medicinal ingredients to enter Elder Tan's pill furnace. The pill furnace that Elder Tan gave him was simply the best of the best. Not only was the quality low, but there was even a soul imprint inside. To use the pill furnace to refine the true martial pill, the soul imprint must be erased. The eldest prince can refine the true martial pill in 4.5 minutes at most. Zhang Tianwen still has 5 minutes. I have to speed up. Taking a deep breath, Ning Yu's soul force surged out and entered the cauldron. Attacking the soul imprint. What Ning Yu needed to do was to erase Elder Tan's soul imprint first. Although Old Tan's soul force wasn't too strong, only at the early stage of rank 4, his soul imprint was extremely powerful. Even though Ning Yu's soul force was at the peak of rank 5, it still took him 30 seconds to erase his soul imprint. As soon as Ning Yu erased the soul imprint inside the pill furnace, Elder Tan felt a fishy sweetness in his throat. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he swallowed it back down. Otherwise, he would have lost a lot of phase. After erasing the soul imprint inside the pill furnace, Ning Yu placed his right hand at the bottom of the pill furnace, and a blue flame appeared. Azure Spirit Fire. At this moment, Ning Yu decided to use the Azure Spirit Fire. There was not much time left. If he used Yuan Qi to ignite the flame, it might be too late. Therefore, Ning Yu used the flame ranked 280th on the Mystic Flames list, the Azure Spirit Fire. However, when Ning Yu used the Azure Spirit Fire, he modified it slightly, making it difficult for the surrounding martial artists to detect its rank. Why does the flame on Ning Yu's fingertip look so familiar? Ren Xiangtian frowned when he saw the blue flame on Ning Yu's fingertip. He was very sensitive to flames and could basically determine that the flame on Ning Yu's fingertip was not simple. It was at least in the top 500 of the Mystic Flames list. The Azure Spirit Fire, ranked 280th on the Mystic Flames list. On the face of the pinnacle of the Primal Core stage martial artist, a grave expression surfaced. His understanding of flames was deeper than Ren Xiangtian's. When Ning Yu took out the flame, he knew that it was the Azure Spirit Fire, ranked 280th on the Mystic Flames list. Chapter 450. Compromise Qi. In midair, Ning Yu was controlling the flame of the blue spirit fire while controlling his soul force into the cauldron to start refining the true martial pill. With Ning Yu's soul force at the peak of the 5th grade, he could refine the true martial pill without any trouble, and the lowest quality would be the highest grade. There were still 4 minutes before the eldest prince and Zhang Tianwen could refine the true martial pill. In other words, Ning Yu had to refine the true martial pill within 4 minutes to win. Using Old Tan's inferior pill furnace to refine the true martial Dan, for the current Ning Yu, there was still a long way to go. I can refine the true martial pill in 5 minutes. Let's see how arrogant you can be then. Zhang Tianwen snorted coldly and said sinisterly. Zhang Tianwen had the white fiend cauldron and the red patterned fire. Combined with the soul force of the 5th grade middle stage, he had already reached the last step in just 5 minutes. The pill formation was also the most important part of refining the true martial pill. Even with Zhang Tianwen's alchemy level, it would still take him 5 minutes to complete the final pill formation. I can refine the true martial pill in 4 minutes. Compared to Zhang Tianwen, the eldest prince's speed of refining the true martial pill was much faster. Although the eldest prince's soul force was not as strong as Zhang Tianwen's, his cauldron and flame were better than Zhang Tianwen's. Comparing the two, it was reasonable that he could refine the true martial pill before Zhang Tianwen. Bang! However, just as Ning Yu and the others were refining the true martial pill, a crisp voice sounded. Ning Yu, you actually said that there is no problem with the cauldron? Old Tan slammed the cauldron on the ground and scolded, "Look at what's in the cauldron!" Crash! The crisp sound of the cauldron falling on the ground and Old Tan's scolding easily attracted everyone's attention. What's going on? What's wrong with the cauldron? I didn't find any problem. I don't see any problem either. Is Elder Tan deliberately making things difficult for Ning Yu? It's hard to say. After all, the first prince is about to refine the true martial Dan. Elder Tan is indeed ruthless to deal with Ning Yu at this time. Ning Yu is not a pushover. Let's wait and see for now. At first, the voices of the surrounding martial artists were very soft, but in the end, the voices gradually became louder. It wasn't that they found their conscience and spoke up for Ning Yu, but Elder Tan's actions were indeed a little overboard. Without any evidence, he deliberately made things difficult for Ning Yu. This was clearly looking for trouble. Open your eyes wide and see what's in this furnace. The discussions of the surrounding cultivators clearly caused Old Tan's expression to turn ugly. However, he was still rational and did not get angry. Instead, he pointed at the cauldron on the ground and said coldly, "What else could be inside the pill furnace?" As soon as Old Man Tan's voice fell, an alchemist released his soul force and carefully entered the pill furnace. F***CK. Very quickly the alchemist cursed. What's in the pill furnace? I'm not sure. Let's check it too. Yes, let's check it. There were also many alchemists in the second Yuan room. Of course, apart from Ning Yu and Zhang Tianwen, Ren Xiangtian and the peak primal core martial artist were the highest level of alchemy. The two of them frowned and pondered for a moment before they also released their soul force and began to probe the pill furnace. Swish! However, just as they released their soul force, Old Man Tan's figure flashed and landed in front of them. You two give me some face. Don't interfere in this matter. I will definitely thank you in the future. Old Man Tan's words were a little vague, but the meaning was clear. Old Man Tan, by doing this, aren't you afraid that the Emperor? Ren Xiangtian frowned and said, If I told you that I'm doing this completely on the orders of that person, I wonder how you would feel? Old Man Tan interrupted Ren Xiangtian and said lightly. Ren Xiangtian instantly understood. It turned out that Old Man Tan wasn't fighting alone in this matter. There was an even more powerful existence behind him. After pondering for a moment, Ren Xiangtian said in a low voice, No matter what, Ning Yu is a core disciple of Danwu College's Sacred Institute. Isn't that person a little too petty by doing this? Petty? Haha, to tell you the truth, the Emperor wants to choose one of the 3 princes to be the crown prince. Old Man Tan raised his eyebrows and smiled. Therefore, the crown prince must not leave Tianyuan building at this time. Isn't the Emperor afraid of offending Danwu College? Ren Xiangtian still wanted to fight for Ning Yu and continued, Ning Yu is many times stronger than Zhang Tianwen. If Danwu College finds out about today's matter, they will definitely spend more resources on Ning Yu. In fact, it is very likely that Ning Yu will be promoted to the second son of saint in Danwu College's history. If Ning Yu wants to become the son of saint, he might still be a little short. At this moment, the peak primal core martial artist said slowly, Danwu College has extremely strict requirements for the son of saint. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only one son of saint after so many years. Even if Ning Yu can't become the son of saint, you can't frame him, right? Ren Xiangtian said in a low voice. I agree with that. The peak primal core martial artist nodded and turned to Old Man Tan. If there really was a problem with the cauldron, I wouldn't say anything if you punish Ningyu. But now that there is nothing wrong with the cauldron, I'm afraid I won't agree to it if you frame him. This, Old Man Tan could ignore Ren Xiangtian's words, but he had to consider the words of a peak primal core martial artist. Because of the status of a peak primal core martial artist, he could not afford to offend him. Even the current emperor had to think twice before acting. After a moment of silence, Old Man Tan began to use the secret method of the royal family to contact the emperor. After a moment, Old Man Tan took a deep breath, and his expression became somewhat ugly. Old Man Tan, how did the discussion go? The peak primal core martial artist asked lightly. Ningyu is lucky today to have you speak up for him. Old Man Tan's expression was cold, and a huge suction force exploded from his palm. In an instant, the cauldron on the ground was caught in his hand. What is Old Man Tan doing? I'm not sure. Didn't he say that there was a problem with the cauldron? Why did he take it back now? Maybe. I'm not sure either. Why are you talking if you're not sure? Old Man Tan's expression was somewhat gloomy as he said in a clear voice, I was careless just now. There is nothing wrong with this cauldron. Nothing wrong? That's impossible. I found a true martial pill in the cauldron. An early-stage 4th-grade alchemist exclaimed. Haha, let me tell you. The peak primal core martial artist smiled and said, what you found was not a true martial pill, but an elixir that is extremely similar to the true martial pill, the true spirit pill. True spirit pill? The early-stage 4th-grade alchemist frowned slightly and murmured. Chapter 451. Crack. Just as everyone's attention was on the true martial pill, someone yelled, attracting everyone's attention. In the second Yuan room, countless gazes were directed at the first prince. Everyone wanted to know if the first prince would be able to refine the true martial pill first. As for Ningyu, he was ignored. Clang! The eldest prince smacked the cauldron with his right hand, and a crisp sound echoed in the room. The lid of the cauldron flew up, and the true martial pill inside was about to burst out. Boom! At that moment, Ningyu's eyes turned cold, and he smacked the cauldron with his palm. Crack! The next moment, the lid flew off, and the cauldron exploded. 2 round and slightly black medicinal pills shot out. Swoosh! Ningyu had sharp eyes and nimble hands, instantly grabbing the medicinal pill in his hand. This is impossible. Looking at the pills in Ningyu's hand, the eldest prince's mouth was slightly agape, and he stood rooted to the ground. He didn't even take out the true martial pill from the cauldron. Cheating. Ningyu is definitely cheating. On the other side, the shock in Zhang Tianwen's eyes was no less than the eldest prince's. Ningyu used Old Tan's broken cauldron to refine the true martial pill in 4 minutes. He wouldn't believe it no matter what. In Zhang Tianwen's opinion, Ningyu must be cheating. Idiot! Ningyu glanced at Zhang Tianwen from the corner of his eye, and walked straight to Old Tan. It didn't take long for Ningyu to arrive in front of Elder Tan. Can I trouble you to check and see if it is a true martial Dan? Ningyu opened his palm and the 2 dawn in his palm appeared in Elder Tan's vision. No need to check. They are true martial pills, and they are supreme-grade true martial pills. Old Man Tan released his soul force and examined the 2 pills for a while before speaking with extreme reluctance. Whoosh! Elder Tan's words instantly caused an uproar. He actually refined a real martial Dan again. This time, Ningyu used a broken alchemical furnace. To be able to refine a Zhenwu Dan in such a short period of time, it's really not easy. That's right. The most important thing is that Ningyu is refining the best quality true martial Dan. This is the most coquettish compared to the gasps of the crowd. Ren Xiangtian and the pinnacle of the primal core stage were the most shocked. What they were concerned about was not whether or not Ningyu could refine the true martial Dan, but how long would it take for Ningyu to refine the true martial Dan. The result was very surprising to them. Even though he used Old Tan's broken alchemical furnace, Ningyu still spent less than 5 minutes to refine a true martial dan, and the quality had even reached the highest grade. Now, both of them were rubbing shoulders with each other, eager to have an alchemy competition with Ningyu. Old Tan, forgive me for asking. The crowd's gasps did not affect Ningyu at all. He looked at Old Tan and said, "Does this count as my victory?" "Indeed, it counts as your victory." Old Tan's face was gloomy. "Since I have won, then please ask Zhang Tianwen and the Crown Prince to leave. They are not welcome here." Ningyu shrugged and said, "What? You want to kick us out?" Hearing Ningyu's words, Zhang Tianwen was the first to explode. He said angrily, "Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? You and the Crown Prince refined the true martial dan at the same time. How can you be considered the winner?" "Did the Crown Prince refine the true martial dan too? Why didn't I know about it?" Ningyu's expression was a little exaggerated as he said, "Ask the Crown Prince to take out the true martial dan for me to see. If he can take out the true martial dan, I will consider it your victory." "Ha!" Zhang Tianwen laughed out loud. He then changed the topic and said coldly, "Ningyu, you are too confident. The Crown Prince has already refined the true martial dan. You are just one step ahead of him." Then, Zhang Tianwen came to the Crown Prince's side and said, "Crown Prince, please take out the true martial dan and show it to the arrogant Ningyu." "What is Ningyu doing? There is also a true martial dan in the cauldron." Ren Xiangtian frowned. With his powerful soul power, he could naturally see that there was a true martial dan in the cauldron. Although it was only a low-grade true martial dan, it was still a true martial dan. Once the Crown Prince took out the true martial dan, didn't that mean that Ningyu was going to lose? There seems to be something wrong with the true martial dan in the cauldron. The peak of the primal core realm warrior murmured as he stared at the cauldron and took a deep breath. The Crown Prince's face was gloomy. He stood where he was and did not take out the true martial dan in the cauldron right away. The soul power in his body poured out and entered the cauldron. He seemed to be fiddling with something. Pop! After a while, the Crown Prince's palm hit the cauldron hard. The lid flew up, and a smooth and round elixir shot out from the cauldron. The Crown Prince grabbed the elixir in his hand and waved it in front of everyone. He said in a low voice, "The quality of the true martial dan I made is not as good as Ningyu's. It is only a low-grade true martial dan. A low-grade true martial dan is still a true martial dan. Crown Prince, don't belittle yourself." Zhang Tianwen said loudly, "I seem to have heard someone say that as long as the Crown Prince can make the true martial dan, he will lose." Then, Zhang Tianwen smiled at Ningyu. But that kind of smile was very annoying. I can't believe that Ningyu shot himself in the foot." Yeah, Ningyu had already won, but he just had to ask for it. He asked for it. He can't blame anyone else. The discussion of the martial artists around made Zhang Tianwen even more proud. It was as if he was the one who made the true martial dan and not the Crown Prince. "Crown Prince, can I ask you a question?" Ningyu said to the Crown Prince expressionlessly. "What is it?" The Crown Prince's eyes flickered. He was about to put the true martial dan in his pocket. I just want you to take out the true martial dan and let everyone check it," Ningyu said with a smile. "Ningyu, what do you mean? Do you think the Crown Prince didn't make the true martial dan?" Zhang Tianwen scolded before the Crown Prince could say anything. "I didn't say that. I just want him to take out the true martial dan," Ningyu said lightly. "If he has a guilty conscience, he can choose not to take it out." Just take it out. What's the big deal?" The first prince snorted coldly and placed the pill in his hand on the table. In the number 2 yuan booth, everyone moved closer to the table, trying to take a closer look at the dan. "The quality of this true martial dan is just a bit low. There is nothing wrong with it. The Crown Prince is a 4th-grade early-stage alchemist. It is not easy for him to make a low-grade true martial dan in 10 minutes. Ningyu wouldn't be unreasonable. What? However, before the last cultivator could finish his sentence, his eyes widened and a look of shock appeared on his face. Crack! Chapter 452. An inexplicable threat, damn it. When the low-grade true martial pill was broken, the first prince dashed out violently. After cursing in his heart, he dashed straight towards the table. Whoosh! However, as soon as the first prince moved, Ningyu moved and blocked his way. Get out of my way, the eldest prince said coldly. Hee, why are you in such a hurry? Do you want to keep the shattered true martial pill? Ningyu smiled. Bang! The eldest prince's face darkened when he heard Ningyu's words. In the next moment, he took a step forward and punched Ningyu's chest with his fist that contained a violent fluctuation of yuan qi. In order to repel Ningyu, the first prince used all his strength in this attack, bringing forth gusts of strong wind. Big brother is so strong. The sixth prince, Ouyang Yuan, looked serious when he saw the eldest prince's attack. The eldest prince was the biggest obstacle on his path to becoming the crown prince. With the eldest prince in his way, he had almost no hope of becoming the crown prince. He and the eldest prince had similar power, the only difference being their own strength. If he could beat the eldest prince in martial arts, he would have an 80% chance of becoming the crown prince. As for the remaining 20%, it was the third prince, Ouyang Hai. Let's fight. It's best if both sides suffer. The third prince, Ouyang Hai, watched the fight between Ningyu and the eldest prince like a bystander, as if it had nothing to do with him. What is the eldest prince trying to do? Ningyu can even fight against Old Tan. How can he be a match for Ningyu? Ren Xiangtian frowned. He felt that the eldest prince was digging his own grave. There was no chance of him winning. Old Tan was an early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist. If Ningyu could take a blow from him without losing, it showed how strong Ningyu was. The eldest prince was only an early-stage primordial core martial artist. Even if he gave it his all, he might not be a match for Ningyu. Xiao! At that moment, a silhouette dashed past the first prince, and with a shocking speed, flew towards the table where the low-grade true martial pills were placed. It's Zhang Tianwen. What is he doing? Isn't it obvious? He wants to snatch the low-grade true martial dan. Originally, everyone's attention had been focused on Ningyu and the first prince. They wanted to see if Ningyu could block the first prince's fatal attack. However, Zhang Tianwen's sudden action caused them to start discussing. The discussions of these cultivators naturally distracted Ningyu, causing him to look at Zhang Tianwen. It's not good to be distracted now. Ningyu had just turned his head when the great prince's laughter rang out beside his ear. At the next moment, the first prince's fist arrived before Ningyu and smashed fiercely toward Ningyu's chest. Noisy! Faced with such a powerful attack from the first prince, Ningyu let out a low bellow. He infused the essence in his sea of consciousness into his wrist and threw a backhand punch. It collided with the first prince's fist. Bang! Crack! First, a crisp sound was heard, followed by a cracking sound. In the end, the first prince let out a hysterical scream, and his body retreated explosively. Shush! As the first prince retreated, Ningyu rose from the ground and appeared before Zhang Tianwen in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, Ningyu quickly reached out his right hand and grabbed at Zhang Tianwen's wrist. Get out of my way! Zhang Tianwen was about to grab the low-grade true martial dan, but the sudden appearance of his palm made his eyes turn cold. The next moment, Zhang Tianwen's palm turned into a claw and grabbed at Ningyu's wrist. Crack! Unfortunately, Ningyu also turned his fist into a claw and grabbed Zhang Tianwen's wrist before he could. A crisp sound accompanied by the squeal of a pig being slaughtered rang out in booth number 2. Don't be so shameless. This dan is indeed a low-grade true martial dan, but it is only a semi-finished product. It cannot be considered a real true martial dan. After pushing back Zhang Tianwen, Ningyu pointed at the dan on the table and said coldly, What? A semi-finished product? A martial artist exclaimed. It really is a semi-finished product. No wonder Ning Yu was so confident. An early level 4 alchemist nodded. Yes, after all this time, the first prince made a semi-finished product. I thought he. Another mid-primal core martial artist said with a frown. Don't talk so much. Before the mid-primal core martial artist could finish, another martial artist next to him gave him a look and whispered, "The first prince is already miserable enough. Zhang Tianwen, first prince, do you want to leave the booth yourselves, or do I have to invite you out?" Ning Yu did not ask Old Tan this time. Instead, he said lightly, "I won't make things difficult for you if you leave yourselves, but if I invite you out, I might ask for some compensation." Ning Yu, aren't you going a bit too far? Old Tan felt the need to plead on behalf of the first prince and Zhang Tianwen. The first prince and Zhang Tianwen have already been injured by you. Asking them to leave now is not very kind. Haha, I just gave them a chance by asking them to leave. Ning Yu smiled. If the injuries on their palms are not treated in time within an hour, there will likely be repercussions. I only asked them to leave to treat the injuries on their palms. When it's possible to let people off, one should take a detour. Sometimes, giving others a chance is also giving yourself a chance. Old Tan said solemnly. I understand this logic, but I'm the one who decides who I give a chance to. You don't. Ning Yu said indifferently, not giving any face to Old Tan. Old Tan's face darkened. He wished he could attack Ning Yu again. However, he was very clear that he could not attack Ning Yu again without the Emperor's orders. Buzz buzz. Suddenly, the space around Old Tan trembled slightly. Then, an almost undetectable sound entered his ears. The corners of Old Tan's mouth rose slightly, revealing a sinister smile. Old Tan crossed his arms and stared at Ning Yu with interest. Ning Yu, I have a piece of news to tell you. I wonder if you want to hear it? Ning Yu raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, What news? Why don't you tell me? There are a total of 3 boxes on the 4th floor of the Tianyuan restaurant. Aside from our box, there is also Yuan Box 1 and Yuan Box 3. Senior Tan paced 2 steps in the room and said, Your friends may have encountered some trouble in the 3rd Yuan Box. Trouble? Ning Yu faintly felt that something was wrong. However, he did not lose his rationality. Chapter 453. Chapter 453, Death throw him out, ha ha ha, ouch. Zhang Tianwen could not help but laugh at Old Man Tan's words. However, because his laughter was too loud, it triggered the injury on his wrist, causing him to grimace in pain. Ning Yu, if I remember correctly, Lu Wei and the rest should be in the 3rd Yuan room. Zhang Tianwen endured the pain from his wrist and said fiercely, 3 early primal core Zhang family martial artists, TSK, just thinking about it makes me excited. Zhang Tianwen, don't get excited here, just get out. Feng Zi was in the 3rd Yuan room, and with him around, not to mention 3 early primal core Zhang family martial artists. Even if there were 5 or 10, Ning Yu would not be too worried. With Feng Zi's powerful strength, defeating 3 early primal core Zhang family martial artists was as easy as pie. Therefore, as soon as Ning Yu's voice fell, he went straight to Zhang Tianwen, grabbed his shoulder, and lifted him up like he was lifting a chick. Put me down, or I'll teach you a lesson. Being lifted up by Ning Yu, Zhang Tianwen felt humiliated and shouted. However, Ning Yu completely ignored him and walked straight to the door of the 2nd Yuan room. Bang! In the next moment, Ning Yu exerted some strength in his wrist and threw Zhang Tianwen out of the room. Clap clap. Then, Ning Yu dusted his hands and once again came before the first prince. Facing the first prince, Ning Yu did not treat him the same way he treated Zhang Tianwen, but said calmly, I will not make things difficult for you, you better leave the room yourself. Once I make a move, you might be a little embarrassed. Ning Yu, is there really no room for negotiation? The first prince's face was cold as he said in a low voice. To be honest, he could not accept leaving the room. As the first prince of the Xia kingdom, the most likely contender for the position of crown prince, if word got out that he had compromised with Ning Yu in the second Yuan room, how could he establish himself in the Xia kingdom? How could he establish himself in the capital? It's too late to discuss it with me now, Ning Yu said lightly. You! The first prince's face was livid and extremely gloomy. He had no choice but to shift his gaze to Elder Tan, hoping to get his help. At this time, only Old Tan could help him and let him stay in the private room. Sigh. Elder Tan sighed softly and turned his head away, refusing to look at the first prince. Without the Emperor's approval, Elder Tan did not dare to do anything to Ning Yu. Ka. Elder Tan's actions caused the eldest prince to clench his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard, and his heart sank to rock bottom. Ning Yu, let's put this matter behind us. I owe you a favor. Right at this moment, a powerful voice resounded from room 2. Voila! The moment this voice rang out, the expressions of all the cultivators in the private rooms turned serious. I thought you wouldn't open your mouth. Ning Yu was not too surprised. After all, the eldest prince was a strong contender for the position of crown prince, and the emperor would definitely not allow him to leave Tianyuan restaurant. The emperor had personally spoken up to plead for the eldest prince. If Ning Yu continued to be stubborn, it would not be forceful, but foolish. Elder Tan, bring Ming for treatment. I will personally host the rest of the assessment. The powerful voice rang out again, leaving no room for doubt. Yes. Elder Tan didn't dare to be negligent. After responding, he immediately left the second Yuan room with the eldest prince. Since Ning Yu has defeated Ming and Zhang Tianwen in alchemy, then Ning Yu does not need to participate in the following alchemy assessment. He can directly participate in the final assessment. After Elder Tan left, the powerful voice rang out again. Your Majesty, I have a request. As soon as the powerful voice rang out, a peak primal core cultivator stepped forward and said in a deep voice, I want to compete with Ning Yu in alchemy. You want to compete with him in alchemy? In room 1, the middle-aged man's expression was somewhat displeased, but he still said in a deep voice, I cannot make the decision on this matter. As long as you can ask for Ning Yu's permission, I don't mind. Raising an eyebrow, the peak primal core cultivator came before Ning Yu and said directly, I want to compete with you in alchemy. I hope you can agree. Why should I compete with you in alchemy? Ning Yu did not immediately agree to the peak primal core cultivator's request, but frowned instead. Up until now, Ning Yu did not even know who the peak primal core cultivator was. Compete with him in alchemy? There was no need at all. Haha, my identity is very ordinary. The martial artist at the peak of the primal core stage smiled and whispered to Ning Yu, as long as you can defeat me in the alchemy competition, I can tell you who I am. Not interested, Ning Yu shrugged. You may not be interested now, but if I tell you that I know who the mysterious power in Shuiyu Pavilion is, I wonder if you would be interested, the peak primal core cultivator said again. This time, Ning Yu was finally moved, and he said in a deep voice, Do you know who that mysterious force is? That's right, but only if you can defeat me in alchemy. The peak primal core cultivator nodded and said, No problem, I can promise you that. Hearing this, Ning Yu did not hesitate and immediately agreed to the peak primal core cultivator's request. He had originally intended to make a trip to Shuiyu Pavilion after leaving Tianyuan Tower. If he could find out who the mysterious power in Shuiyu Pavilion was, it would naturally save him a lot of trouble. Indeed, straightforward, I like it. The peak primal core cultivator's face lit up as he said this. Ning Yu looked at the peak primal core cultivator with disdain. You like me, but I don't like you. Oh right, I still don't know your name. Suddenly, Ning Yu seemed to have thought of something and asked. Look at my memory, Li Tongtian. The peak primal core cultivator patted his head. However, before he could finish his sentence, a cracking sound rang out from the door of the second Yuan booth. Whoosh! As the sound rang out, all the warriors in the booth turned their gazes to the door in unison. If they had not looked, they would not have known, but once they did, they were shocked. In front of the booth, 3 warriors covered in blood stood there, their auras slightly weak. What? The moment he saw these 3 warriors, Ningyu shouted out loud. Because, among the 3 warriors, there was one that he was extremely familiar with. It was none other than Feng Zi. Who had beaten Feng Zi up like this? Wasn't the highest level warrior in the 3rd Yuan booth only at the early primal core stage? Who had such great power to beat Feng Zi up like this? And where were Lu Wei, Xikong Ling, and Xiao Yu? Why didn't he see them? A series of questions arose in Ning Yu's mind, causing his expression to darken completely. Feng Zi, what is going on? After a brief moment of shock, Ningyu took a step forward and came before Feng Zi. In a low voice he asked, "Where are Lu Wei and the rest?" Chapter 454. Illusion, illusion? What illusion? Ningyu's brows knitted tightly as he asked once more. Sucking in a deep breath, Feng Zi slowly said, "Yuan room number 3, the entire thing is an illusion." It turned out that after Feng Zi and Lu Wei they all entered Yuan room number 3, they suddenly felt their vision go black and instantly lost consciousness. When they woke up, they found themselves in a dense forest. Virtually at the same time, Feng Zi knew that he entered an illusion. Furthermore, it was even a high-level illusion. Everything in the surroundings was vivid and lifelike. Just as Feng Zi they all were thinking about how to leave the illusion, several peak Tier 5 demonic beasts suddenly appeared. Without a word, they directly launched an attack at them. Among the 4 of them, only Feng Zi's strength was formidable and could contend with peak Tier 5 demonic beasts. As for Xikong Ling and Xiao Yu they were completely insufficient. The 3 of them joining hands were not a match for a peak Tier 5 demonic beast. As they fought, Feng Zi and Lu Wei they all got separated. What happened next, Feng Zi had no idea. He only remembered that he killed several peak Tier 5 demonic beasts, then was transported out. Are Lu Wei they all still in Yuan room number 3? Hearing Feng Zi's narration, Ningyu said in a solemn voice. That's right. When I came out, I saw that Lu Wei and Xiao Yu they all were still in Yuan room number 3. It's just that their expressions were lifeless and had not left the illusion yet, Feng Zi replied. Looks like it's not a simple illusion, but a high-level illusion. Ning Yu's expression became extremely solemn. Logically speaking, low-level environments, as long as the character encountered danger or suffered interference, they would automatically leave the illusion. High-level illusionary realms were different. The injuries suffered in the illusionary realms would be brought back to reality. This was the most terrifying. Swoosh. Right at this time, a figure appeared in front of Yuan room number 2. Elder Tan. Seeing this familiar figure, Ning Yu's brows furrowed slightly, feeling somewhat incredulous. At this time, shouldn't Elder Tan bring the eldest prince to treat his wrist? Why did he appear here? These 3 warriors are experts selected from the 3rd Yuan Bak. Next, they will join you and participate in the assessment with you. Old Tan pointed to the 3 cultivators covered in blood and said in a clear voice, because they are injured, they will not participate in the first round of the test. They will participate in the second round directly. Following that, Old Tan said to Feng Zi and the rest, follow me. I'll treat you guys first before coming over to participate in the assessment later. No need. Ningyu waved his hand and said, I'll treat Feng Zi's injury, Elder Tan doesn't need to worry. This, Old Tan was dumbfounded and stood rooted to the ground. The reason why Elder Tan gave up on treating the eldest prince and came here was entirely because of the current emperor. The emperor's words were very simple, there was only one sentence. Bring Feng Zi to see me. How could Old Man Tan disobey the emperor? Therefore, he gave up on treating the first prince and immediately went to the door of Yuan room number 2. Unexpectedly, Ningyu interfered. I know my injuries very well. I'll be fine with Ning Yu's help, Fengzi said in a low voice. The injuries you suffered in the illusion are a little special. Although Ning Yu is not weak, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for him to treat you. Old Tan did not want to give up and decided to give it a try. He said, the illusion was set up by a high-level illusionist in the royal family. He can treat your injuries in an extremely short time. Can I say something? At this moment, Li Tongtian could not stand it anymore. He pointed to Fengzi and said, this brother's injuries are indeed very light. They are all superficial wounds and do not need any additional treatment. If Old Tan thinks that Ning Yu can't treat him, I can give it a try. Although I'm not very strong, I can still help, Ren Xiangtian said. I have a good relationship with Ning Yu. His business is my business. Sixth Prince Ouyang Yuan laughed. Ouyang Yuan would not let go of any opportunity to get closer to Ning Yu. Old Tan's expression was extremely ugly. If it was only Ning Yu, he could forcefully take Fengzi away. However, with Ouyang Yuan, Ren Xiangtian, and Li Tongtian, he had to think twice. Even he might not be a match for Ren Xiangtian and Li Tongtian, these two big shots. Old Tan, go and do your thing. Leave Fengzi's matter here for now. You don't need to worry about it. Just as Old Tan was feeling very troubled, a soft voice rang in his ear. Hearing this voice, Old Tan felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He glared fiercely at Ning Yu and left. Other than Fengzi, two other martial artists covered in blood followed closely behind Old Tan. After Old Tan and the others left, Li Tongtian smiled at Ning Yu and said, can we start our alchemy competition now? Wait a moment. Ning Yu did not agree to Li Tongtian immediately. Instead, he asked Ouyang Yuan, how much do you know about the illusion in room 3? To be honest, even I didn't know that there was an illusion in room 3, Ouyang Yuan replied. Clearly, this was also the first time he heard that room 3 was an illusion. Even you don't know, Ning Yu fell into deep thought. Since sixth Prince Ouyang Yuan did not know about the illusion, it seemed that only Old Tan and the Emperor knew about it in the vast Tianyuan building. What was the Emperor trying to do? Why did he set up an illusion in room 3? What was his intention? Ning Yu did not know about these things. However, there was one thing that Ning Yu was certain about. The Emperor most likely did not have good intentions. At the thought of this, Ning Yu tried his best to calm himself down. No matter what, at least Lu Wei and the rest were not in danger for the time being. Sixth Prince, thank you for your cauldron just now. Without your cauldron, I would not have been able to refine the first batch of true martial pills, Ning Yu said to Ouyang Yuan. It was nothing. Furthermore, I did not help you much, Ouyang Yuan said. Ning Yu, I might know a thing or two about the illusions in the third Yuan room. Li Tongtian frowned and said, there is only one high-level illusionist in the royal family. The illusion set up by that illusionist affects the weaker one's cultivation. How strong is his soul power? Ning Yu asked. Illusionists mainly relied on their soul power to create illusions. Therefore, the stronger the soul power, the more realistic and terrifying the illusion set up. In his previous life, Ning Yu had met an illusionist with a 9th-grade soul power. Even Ning Yu had to spend an entire day to escape from the illusion set up by that illusionist. One could imagine how terrifying the illusion set up by an illusionist with a strong soul power was. Chapter 455. Chapter 455 Death A Formidable Enemy, 6th Grade Soul Power. As soon as Li Tongtian finished his sentence, Ning Yu's heart skipped a beat and he revealed a shocked expression. With Lu Wei's cultivation, it was almost impossible for her to escape from an illusion set up by a 6th-grade illusionist. Ning Yu's expression was extremely solemn. He took a step forward and said in a low voice, Li Tongtian, I might not be able to compete with you in alchemy anymore. I have something important to do now. Ning Yu would never allow Lu Wei and the rest to suffer in the illusion. Therefore, Ningyu made up his mind to immediately head to Yuan Room 3 and enter the illusion to rescue Lu Wei and the rest. Ningyu, I'm afraid it's too late for you to go now. Perhaps he had seen through Ningyu's thoughts, Li Tongtian said in a low voice. Even if you enter the illusion set up by a high-level illusionist, it will be difficult to find anyone else. There are only two ways for a normal martial artist to leave the illusion. Ren Xiangtian added, first, leave the illusion like Feng Zi did. Second, the illusionist will release them personally. Ningyu, they're right, Feng Zi said in a low voice. When we first entered the illusion, there was no one else except for the few of us. This means that even if you enter the illusion, you won't be able to find Lu Wei and the rest. If that's the case, then find the illusionist. Let him release Lu Wei and the rest personally. The Emperor must have known about letting Lu Wei enter the illusion set up by a high-level illusionist, but he did not stop it. Coupled with the fact that the mysterious faction in Snow Pavilion was very likely to have dealings with the royal family, Ningyu could basically conclude that the illusionist had obtained the Emperor's approval. As for what the Emperor was up to, Ningyu had no idea. I hope Lu Wei and the others are fine. Otherwise… Ningyu clenched his fists and a ruthless look appeared on his face. Ningyu, as long as you can defeat Li Tongtian and the others, I can let you meet the high-level illusionist who set up the illusion. At this moment, an extremely soft voice rang in Ningyu's ears. Hearing this voice, Ningyu's expression changed. He was extremely shocked in his heart, because the owner of the voice was none other than the current emperor. Li Tongtian, let's compete on which pill to refine. Since the emperor had spoken, it meant that Lu Wei and the rest were temporarily safe. Since Lu Wei and the rest were not in danger, Ningyu could only follow the emperor's wishes and compete with Li Tongtian and the rest in pill refining. Although the feeling of being led by the nose made Ningyu very unhappy, he was helpless now. Let's compete on refining the true martial pill. After a moment of silence, Li Tongtian said, the true martial pill is only a 4th-grade pill. With our alchemy skills, we'll be able to refine it in no time. This time, we'll not only compete on pill refining speed, but also on the quality of the pill. Medicinal pill quality. Ningyu raised his brows and said without batting an eyelid. That's right. Whoever refines the true martial pill first wins. Li Tongtian said solemnly. Swoosh. Li Tongtian's words silenced the second Yuan room. The rest of the alchemists had their mouths agape. Their faces were filled with astonishment. The true martial pill? Could Ningyu and Li Tongtian refine it? Although the true martial Dan was only a 4th-grade Dan, the transcendent true martial Dan was extremely difficult to refine. It could be said that even a 5th-grade or 6th-grade alchemist would not dare to say that they could refine a transcendent true martial Dan. Who on earth was Li Tongtian to want to refine a true martial pill? Count me in. I'd like to try refining a true martial pill too. However, what surprised the crowd was yet to come. Ren Xiangtian immediately expressed his desire to join the ranks of those who wanted to refine the true martial pill. Were they too outdated or was the world too crazy? Swoosh. After that, the crowd turned their attention to Ningyu. They wanted to see if Ningyu would agree to it. I'm fine with it. Let's refine the true martial pill. Ningyu's answer did not disappoint the crowd. Great. Straightforward indeed. Seeing that Ningyu had agreed, Li Tongtian let out a loud cry of joy. As an alchemist, Li Tongtian had never been a match for his peers. Ever since he saw Ningyu, he had made up his mind to compete with Ningyu in alchemy. When he was at the 4th-grade soul power level, Li Tongtian had tried refining the true martial pill once. Regrettably, he failed to control the fire properly, resulting in the failure of refining the true martial pill. Since then, he had never tried to refine a true martial pill again. Alright, what cauldron are you using? Li Tongtian regained his composure and asked. A good cauldron could greatly improve an alchemist's skills, especially when refining a true martial pill. Without a good cauldron, it would be difficult to succeed. I'll use the 6th prince's cauldron. I used it just now and it fit, Ningyu said calmly, as if the cauldron did not affect him at all. Humph. What are you trying to act tough for? Do you really think it's that easy to refine a true martial pill? Suddenly, the 3rd Prince Ouyang Hai sneered and mocked. Take out your cauldron. Even if you fail, we won't laugh at you. Ouyang Hai's words only made Ningyu frown. He did not take it to heart. If he had to listen to every Tom, Dick and Harry, wouldn't it be a waste of time? Ningyu's indifferent attitude made Ouyang Hai's face turn ugly. Ouyang Hai was not an idiot. His alchemy skills were worlds apart from Ningyu's, and their martial skills were also not on the same level. Even if he looked down on Ningyu, he only dared to talk about it. He did not dare to go against Ningyu directly. Ningyu, why don't we make a bet? Suddenly, Ouyang Hai's ears twitched and he said coldly, as long as you can refine a true martial pill, I can. Shut up. I'm not interested in making a bet with you. Ningyu interrupted Ouyang Hai and said, if you know what's good for you, move aside. Otherwise, I'll make you pay. As he spoke, Ningyu looked at Feng Zi. His meaning was self-evident. Swoosh. Feng Zi understood and in a flash, he appeared in front of Ouyang Hai. Feng Zi extended his right hand and grabbed Ouyang Hai's shoulder like he was carrying a little chick and walked out of the room. You're courting death. Ouyang Hai was furious to be grabbed by Feng Zi. After cursing, he clenched his fists and was about to throw them at Feng Zi. What? However, just as Ouyang Hai was about to throw out his palm, his expression changed. His face was full of disbelief. He felt his whole body go limp and he could not exert any strength in his hands. Scram! While Ouyang Hai was still in shock, Feng Zi threw him out of the room. Ouyang Hai's body condition made Ningyu frown. He could not help but look at Li Tongtian. Just as Ouyang Hai was about to throw a punch, Ningyu noticed a cold gleam shoot out from Li Tongtian and enter Ouyang Hai's body. Chapter 456. Begin. If I'm not wrong, that ray of cold light just now was Li Tongtian's soul power. Ningyu narrowed his eyes as a thought formed in his mind. A formidable opponent. Li Tongtian was definitely a formidable opponent. Although Ningyu could also use his soul power to make Ouyang Hai's body go limp, it would not be as simple as Li Tongtian. This meant that the strength of Li Tongtian's soul power might be even stronger than Ningyu's. Ningyu's soul power was at the pinnacle of the 5th grade. If it was stronger than his own, then it was highly possible that it was at the 6th grade. Ningyu, I have never seen your alchemy furnace. Why don't you show it to me? At this moment, Li Tongtian smiled faintly and said, your alchemy cauldron should not be of a low level. If I told you that I don't have an alchemy furnace with me, would you believe me? Ningyu asked seriously. Staring into Ningyu's eyes, Li Tongtian shook his head and said, I don't believe you. A 5th grade alchemist doesn't have an alchemy furnace with him. Not only me, but everyone here will not believe it. How can he not have an alchemy furnace? He must not want to show it. Not want to show it? This is a supreme grade true martial pill. How can he succeed if he doesn't have an alchemy furnace with him? It is precisely because the supreme grade true martial pill is extremely difficult to refine that Ningyu chose not to use an alchemy furnace with him. This way, even if he fails, he will have an excuse. That's possible. The discussions in the surroundings caused Ningyu's brows to knit together tightly, and he revealed a displeased expression. However, no matter what others said, Ningyu remained unmoved. The next moment, Ningyu came to Ouyang Yuan's side and said, Please lend me your alchemy furnace again. I will return it to you very soon. Here, use it however you like. You don't have to return it to me. Ouyang Yuan handed the alchemy furnace to Ningyu, indicating that he could give it to Ningyu. Ningyu shrugged and declined to comment on Ouyang Yuan's generosity. After that, Ningyu waved the cauldron in his hand and said to Li Tongtian, I have the cauldron now. Can I refine the supreme true martial pill now? There's no hurry. Li Tongtian waved his hand and said, Since you are using such an ordinary cauldron, I will not take advantage of you. How about this? After a moment of silence, Li Tongtian continued, I don't need to carry a cauldron with me anymore. I'll just use a normal cauldron like yours. Li Tongtian reached into his robes and took out a palm-sized alchemy furnace. My elixir cauldron is very ordinary. It's ranked number 105 on the ranking list of cauldrons. It's slightly better than the one in your hand. Li Tongtian waved the elixir cauldron in his hand and smiled lightly. Since you're in such a good mood, I can't fall behind. Ren Xiangtian stepped forward with a small cauldron in his hand. Let's all use the cauldrons on the ranking list of cauldrons to refine the true martial pill. Let's see who can refine the supreme true martial pill first. I'll be the judge. I promise I won't be biased. Yang Yuan raised his hand. Count me in. Zhou Jianming, who had been silent for a long time, chimed in, Even though my alchemy skills aren't that high, I know what a supreme true martial pill is. Ningyu, when do you want to start? Li Tongtian asked. I don't care. As long as I have the ingredients, we can start anytime. Ningyu shrugged. Great. You're straightforward. Li Tongtian hollered and flicked his sleeves. Instantly, a storage pouch appeared in his hands. Swoosh. Swoosh. Li Tongtian patted the storage bag and two beams of light shot out. One flew towards Ningyu and the other towards Ren Xiangtian. Smack. Smack. Ningyu and Ren Xiangtian grabbed the beams of light at the same time. The ingredients for refining the true martial pill. The beams of light were none other than the ingredients for refining the true martial pill. Each beam of light contained 2 sets of ingredient. This meant that Ningyu and the rest had 2 chances each. Of course, it didn't matter how many chances they had. After all, they were competing to see who could refine the supreme true martial pill first. Please check the pills. If there's no problem, we can start. Li Tongtian took out 2 sets of ingredients and kept the storage bag. No problem. Ren Xiangtian glanced at the ingredients and said, Let's start. Ningyu didn't check the ingredients on purpose. When the ingredients were flying towards him, he had already used his soul power to check them. With Li Tongtian's pride, he wouldn't make a fuss about the ingredient. If that's the case, I'll make a move first. As he spoke, Li Tongtian tossed the cauldron in his hand into the air. A green flame appeared on his left fingertip, and he started to heat the cauldron. At the same time, Li Tongtian grabbed a stalk of ingredient with his right hand and threw it into the cauldron. He increased the temperature of the flame and started refining the ingredient. What kind of flame is this? Could it be a flame on the mystical flame chart? I don't know. It should be a flame on the mystical flame chart. Could even be in the top 500. Top 500? That's not possible. It's extremely difficult to get the top 500 flames on the mystical flame chart. It should be difficult for Li Tongtian to get it. No matter what, this flame isn't simple. Swoosh. As the crowd was discussing Li Tongtian's flame, Ren Xiangtian threw the small cauldron above his head. He grabbed a stalk of ingredient and threw it into the cauldron. At the same time, a green flame appeared on his fingertip, and it kept burning the bottom of the cauldron. Green flame? Could it be the green crane flame that's ranked 307th on the mystical flame chart? I don't think so. I've seen the green crane flame before. It's different from the one in Ren Xiangtian's hand. Even if it's not the green crane flame, it must be an extremely precious flame. Whoosh! Compared to the crowd's shock, Ningyu's face was full of surprise. Others might not know what the green and green flames were, but Ningyu knew them very well. The green flame on Li Tongtian's fingertip was the green spirit flame. It was ranked 260th on the mystical flame chart. The green flame on Ren Xiangtian's wrist was the green serpent flame. It was ranked 265th on the mystical flame chart. Both the green spirit flame and the green serpent flame were ranked higher than the blue spirit flame on the mystical flame chart. Disregarding the strength of one's soul power, Ningyu had already lost to Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian in terms of flames alone. Rise. The next moment, Ningyu let out a low growl and threw the cauldron into the air. His soul power surged out and entered the cauldron. At the same time, Ningyu grabbed 2 ingredients and threw them into the cauldron. Although there was only a difference of 1 word between the Supreme and Supreme True Martial Elixirs, Ningyu did not dare to be careless. If there was even the slightest mistake, the refining of the Supreme True Martial Elixir would end in failure. Therefore, Ningyu did not throw all the ingredients into the cauldron. Instead, he threw them in 2 at a time. Ningyu wants to use this method to refine the Supreme True Martial Elixir? Chapter 457. The first cauldron failure. That's not possible. It's not that easy to refine a Supreme True Martial pill. Ningyu won't succeed if he tries to use this method again. Zhou Jianming shook his head and said, I dare say that Ningyu will definitely refine the herbs one by one. He won't. What? However, before Zhou Jianming could finish his sentence, his eyes widened and his face was filled with disbelief. Ningyu grabbed another 2 pearls of herbs and threw them into the cauldron. Gulp! Ningyu's actions made Zhou Jianming swallow a mouthful of saliva. His mouth was wide open enough to fit a fist. If he guessed correctly, the 2 pearls of herbs in the cauldron had not been fully refined. Wasn't Ningyu afraid of the pills exploding when he threw in another 2 pearls of herbs? What the hell is Ningyu doing? He's refining Supreme True Martial pills, and he dares to use this method. Is he an idiot or is he really that capable? It's hard to say. Ningyu's alchemy skills have been proven. Maybe he's still, I'm afraid only a fool like Ningyu would dare to use this method to refine Supreme True Martial pills. Before the last martial artist could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a cold snort. Rustle! The next moment, a few figures appeared in front of Yuan Room 2. Eldest Prince, Third Prince, Old Tan. These figures belonged to the eldest prince and the rest. However, the eldest prince and the third prince seemed to have lost their differences and had started to work together. After entering the private room, the third prince glared fiercely at Li Tongtian, then snorted coldly, If Ningyu can use this method to refine Supreme Jinwu pills, I will twist my head off. Whoosh! The third prince's crazy words caused a commotion in the surroundings. Chop his head off? If Ningyu really managed to refine Supreme True Martial pills, wouldn't he die here? Suddenly, the third prince Ouyang Hai rolled his eyes and walked toward Ouyang Yuan. It didn't take long for him to arrive in front of Ouyang Yuan. He raised his brows and said, Sixth brother, how about we make a bet? Tell me about it, Ouyang Yuan said in a deep voice. Don't be nervous. This bet is very simple. Ouyang Hai laughed and said, If Ningyu is unable to refine a transcendent grade True Martial Dan, you have to give up the fight for the position of Crown Prince. Upon hearing that, Ouyang Yuan's heart sank, and he could not help but look at the first prince. Ouyang crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked curiously at Ningyu. He was not as fierce as before. On the other hand, Old Tan looked like he had nothing to do with this matter. Just now, third brother felt weak all over. It doesn't make sense for him to recover so quickly. Elder Tan or Imperial Father must have found someone to treat him. Ouyang Yuan's face was gloomy. He didn't know what Ouyang Hai was up to. To be more accurate, he didn't know what medicine the Emperor had up his sleeve. Fighting for the position of Crown Prince was such an important matter, yet Ouyang Hai said it so casually? Had he already given up the fight for the position of Crown Prince? Sixth brother, if Ningyu is able to refine a transcendent grade True Martial Dan, I will also give up the fight for the position of Crown Prince. Ouyang Hai continued, How about it? Do you dare to make this bet with me? Pow! Just as Ouyang Yuan was about to answer, a muffled sound was heard, and the entire Yuan room too was in an uproar. Including Ouyang Yuan, all the martial artists present looked in the direction of the sound. This muffled sound came from Ning Yu's cauldron? That's right. It did come from Ning Yu's cauldron. In other words, Ning Yu's first cauldron of true martial dan ended in failure. I already said that Ning Yu can't refine a true martial dan with this kind of alchemy method. After a brief silence, the crowd erupted into a flurry of discussion. The focus of everyone's discussion was on Ning Yu, because the muffled sound came from the cauldron on top of Ning Yu's head. Ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. The third prince, Ouyang Hai, was stunned for a moment before he burst into unbridled laughter. Don't use this kind of alchemy method if you don't have the ability. Oh right, even if he uses other alchemy methods, he can't refine a true martial dan. Just give up. Swoosh. As soon as Ouyang Hai finished speaking, Feng Zi's figure burst out and appeared in front of him. Yuan Qi gathered on his wrist. Feng Zi raised his fist and said angrily, "Say one more word and I'll throw you out." You! Ouyang Hai's smile stopped abruptly, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. But thinking that old Tan was here, he became a little braver and said in a low voice, "Ning Yu failed and you don't let others talk about it? Look at Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian, they've already refined all the medicinal ingredient. I believe it won't be long before they can refine a supreme-grade true martial dan." Ouyang Hai's words made everyone look at Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian. Just as Ouyang Hai said, Li Tongtian had already refined all the medicinal ingredient. At this moment, he was increasing the flame and burning the cauldron fiercely, trying to force out the dregs from the medicinal liquid for the second time. Li Tongtian didn't dare to be careless. After all, it was his first time refining a supreme-grade true martial dan. This time, he wanted to succeed no matter what. Even if it was a little slow, he wanted to refine all the dregs and ensure that he could succeed in one go. He didn't want to be like Ning Yu, who had to refine a second time. On the other hand, although Ren Xiangtian was a step behind Li Tongtian, he had also refined all the medicinal ingredient. Ren Xiangtian didn't rest. He immediately started refining the medicinal liquid for the second time, like Li Tongtian. Whether Ning Yu can refine a supreme-grade true martial dan or not, it's not up to you to tell him what to do. Feng Zi scolded, "If you dare to spout nonsense again, believe it or not, I'll—" Hee, little brother, don't be so hot-tempered at such a young age." At this moment, Old Tan smiled and interrupted Feng Zi. He said, "Ning Yu's first time refining the true martial dan has consumed too much energy. It's almost impossible for him to refine a second batch of true martial dan in such a short period of time, so what the third prince said is not wrong." "Old Tan, I'm afraid you guessed wrong this time." Before Feng Zi could refute, Ouyang Yuan said lightly, "Ning Yu has already started refining the second batch of true martial dan." "What?" Hearing this, Old Tan quickly turned around and looked at Ning Yu. However, when he saw Ning Yu randomly throwing the medicinal ingredients into the cauldron, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. Haha! After laughing, Old Tan pointed at Ning Yu and said, "Sixth Prince, is this what you meant by starting the second batch of true martial dan? Has he lost his mind this time, or is he suffering from epilepsy? He still dares to use this kind of refining method. TSK, I'm very impressed with his courage." From Old Tan's point of view, the reason why Ning Yu failed to refine the true martial dan for the first time was because there was something wrong with his refining method. Chapter 458. All failed, ha ha. After Elder Tan's laughter, the third prince, Ouyang Hai, also laughed out loud. Bold indeed, getting crazier and crazier each time. "Third brother, don't kick him when he's down. That's not very nice." The eldest prince, Ouyang Ming, waved his hand and said calmly, However, just when everyone thought that Ouyang Ming was right, Ouyang Ming changed the topic and smirked. Even if you want to kick him when he's down, you should wait until Ningyu fails. It's too early to say that now. Yes. Big brother, you're right. I've learned my lesson, Ouyang Hai said with an exaggerated expression. Towards the end, even Ouyang Hai couldn't help but laugh out loud. What is Ningyu doing? Li Tongtian's soul power was extremely strong. Even at the most crucial moment, he didn't forget to look at Ningyu. When he saw Ningyu's crazier actions, he couldn't help but mutter to himself. This kind of alchemy method wasn't completely undesirable, but it depended on what kind of pill was being refined. Based on Ningyu's soul power and alchemy level, if he were to refine a first-grade or second-grade pill, he could still use this method. However, the true martial pill was a fourth-grade pill. If Ningyu were to use this method, there was an 80% chance that he would fail. Ningyu has been left behind. Now, let's see if he can refine a supreme true martial pill before Li Tongtian. Seeing that Ningyu was using such a crazy method again, Ren Xiangtian immediately excluded him. He thought that Li Tongtian was his true rival. Indeed, even a 6th grade or 7th grade alchemist wouldn't dare to say that they could use this method to refine a supreme true martial pill. Unless one's control of soul power was at its peak, one could separate many strands of soul power to refine herbs at the same time. Otherwise, refining a supreme true martial pill would be harder than ascending to heaven. Feng Zi, your relationship with Ningyu is closer. Do you think he can succeed? Ouyang Yuan came in front of Feng Zi and asked. That's hard to say. After all, the transcendent true martial Dan is extremely difficult to refine. Taking a deep breath, Feng Zi's expression turned serious. Don't be fooled by Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian's speed. It will be extremely difficult for them to refine true martial pills in one go. That's right, that's a supreme true martial Dan. Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian. Holy shit. At the side, Zhou Jianming was just about to chime in when his expression changed slightly. He stared fixedly at Li Tongtian, who was not too far away, with a look of shock in his eyes. Rise. Li Tongtian let out a low growl as he slammed his palm heavily against the pill furnace. A pill with a smooth and round appearance flew out from the pill furnace. Puff. Li Tongtian's face lit up with joy as he leapt up and grabbed the pill firmly in his hands. Who would have thought that Li Tongtian would be the first to refine a transcendent martial pill? What's so strange about that? Ningyu has already been left behind and Ren Xiangtian is still lacking. Naturally, Li Tongtian will be the first to refine a transcendent martial Dan. Ren Xiangtian is almost there too. According to my estimation, he will only need 10 minutes at most to refine a transcendent martial Dan. Sigh, what a pity. I won't be able to see Ren Xiangtian refine a transcendent martial Dan today. When the other martial artists in the room saw that Li Tongtian had successfully refined a transcendent martial Dan, they were no less astonished than Zhou Jianming. After all, a transcendent martial Dan was extremely difficult to refine. If some 6th-tier alchemists knew that Li Tongtian could refine a transcendent martial Dan so easily, they would probably vomit blood in anger. Look, Li Tongtian doesn't seem too happy. Why would he be unhappy after refining a transcendent martial Dan? Is he too excited? That doesn't make sense. If I had refined a transcendent martial Dan, I would definitely be jumping for joy. That's why you can't refine a transcendent martial Dan. The chatter of the surrounding martial artists did not affect Li Tongtian at all. He raised his palm slightly and then smashed it down forcefully. Crack! In the next moment, a crisp sound rang out in the room. When the martial artists saw the smashed elixirs on the floor, they were once again dumbfounded. Li Tongtian was way too willful. The transcendent martial Dan that he had just refined was smashed to pieces so easily. Wait a minute. Li Tongtian didn't refine a transcendent martial Dan, but a supreme martial Dan. Suddenly, a fourth-tier alchemist stared at the dregs of the elixirs on the floor and exclaimed, "What? Supreme Martial Dan!" A martial artist exclaimed. Obviously, the elixirs that Li Tongtian refined were of extremely high quality. They had already reached the peak of the Supreme Martial Dan and were only one step away from the Transcendent Martial Dan. "What a pity," the fourth-tier alchemist nodded, then shook his head and said, "If I'm not wrong, something must have gone wrong at the last step, causing all his efforts to go to waste." "I see. No wonder Li Tongtian smashed the elixirs. If it were me, I would have done the same. This feeling of falling from the clouds to the bottom of the valley is really worse than death." "That's a little too much. You just didn't refine a Transcendent Martial Dan. You still have one more chance and you're talking about worse than death. I despise you." Bang! The surrounding martial artists wanted to say something else, but they heard a dull thud. Then, Ren Xiangtian rose from the ground and did something unbelievable in front of everyone. He reached his hand into the cauldron and took out an elixir in no time. Transcendent Martial Dan. Who said that Ren Xiangtian would need another 10 minutes to refine a Transcendent Martial Dan? Humph! Who knows, the elixir that Ren Xiangtian refined might not be a Transcendent Martial Dan, but a Supreme Martial Dan. The martial artist who spoke earlier sneered. Ha ha ha, who would have thought that the first martial artist to refine a Transcendent Martial Dan would be Ren Xiangtian. Not long ago, when Li Tongtian refined a Transcendent Martial Dan, Ouyang Hai did not even have the chance to mock Ningyu before Li Tongtian smashed the elixir. Now that Ren Xiangtian had refined a Transcendent Martial Dan, Ouyang Yuan naturally had to mock him. "Sixth brother, you've lost the bet. So, are you going to leave the room yourself, or should I invite you out?" "You." Ouyang Yuan's face turned green. He had already guessed that Ningyu would not be able to refine a Transcendent Martial Dan. However, he could not bring himself to say it out loud. However, he wouldn't agree to leave the room no matter what. Leaving the room would mean giving up on the title of Crown Prince. Giving up on the title of Crown Prince would mean that he would be ostracized by the eldest and third princes. He might not even be able to live after that. After all, the royal family did not care about relationship. The winner takes all. Bang! Ouyang Yuan's expression satisfied Ouyang Hai. However, just as he was about to force Ouyang Yuan to leave the room, another dull thud came from the room. Chapter 459. Chapter 459. Did illusionist Shu. In the next moment, a pill shot out of the cauldron, and Ningyu grabbed it firmly in his hand. "Ningyu also made a supreme true martial Dan? Isn't this too unbelievable? It has only been 7 or 8 minutes since Ningyu made the second batch of true martial Dan. How could Ningyu make a supreme true martial Dan? Let's wait and see. Maybe Ningyu has really made a supreme true martial Dan." At this time, Ningyu refined a true martial Dan, which was really beyond everyone's expectations. However, no one believed that Ningyu could really make a supreme true martial Dan. After all, with such a crazy method, if he could really make a supreme true martial Dan in such a short time, he would really be a genius among geniuses. Humph! Not to mention whether the true martial Dan refined by Ningyu is transcendent grade or not, even if it is a transcendent grade true martial Dan, it is impossible for him to win. The third prince Ouyang Hai sneered. "Ren Xiangtian has already made a supreme true martial Dan before him, he." "Third prince, how do you know I am doomed to fail?" Holding the true martial Dan in his hand, Ningyu slowly walked towards Ouyang Hai, interrupted him, and said lightly, "If I win, what will you do?" "This is impossible. Ren Xiangtian has already." "Could it be?" Ouyang Hai shouted. However, before his voice faded, his eyes widened and revealed a look of disbelief. "Nothing is impossible." Ningyu placed the true martial pill in his hand on the table and said to Ren Xiangtian, "Take out the pill in your hand and let me have a look." If you can really refine a transcendent grade true martial pill, I will concede defeat. Hearing Ning Yu's words, Ren Xiangtian's face turned gloomy. He stood there without moving. He knew the problem of the true martial Dan better than anyone else. Judging from the appearance, the true martial Dan he refined was infinitely close to the supreme grade. Even the sole force of the martial artists who had not reached level 6 could hardly find out that he was not refining a supreme grade true martial Dan, but a supreme grade true martial Dan. It could be said that if he didn't admit to it, perhaps only Ning Yu and Li Tongtian would have a sliver of a chance to know about it. On one hand, it was the outcome of the battle, and on the other hand, it was the condemnation and unease in his heart. At this moment, Ren Xiangtian found it extremely difficult to make a decision. Kacha. After pondering for 3 seconds, Ren Xiangtian suddenly did something that shocked everyone. Just like Li Tongtian, he raised his wrist and slammed it down heavily. A crisp sound, accompanied by the sound of a pill shattering, rang out in the private room. Why did Ren Xiangtian break the true martial pill? Could it be that what he refined wasn't a supreme grade pill, but a supreme grade pill? It is obviously a transcendent grade true martial Dan. As a 4th grade alchemist, how could I not be able to distinguish between a transcendent grade Dan and a supreme grade Dan? But why did Ren Xiangtian smash the pill? I don't know about that. Maybe he wasn't satisfied with it. Are you kidding me? Who wouldn't be satisfied with a transcendent grade true martial Dan? Are you out of your mind? From the moment he raised the pill, Ren Xiangtian knew that he had lost today. Taking a deep breath, Ren Xiangtian said in a low voice, Ning Yu, you are the winner in today's alchemy competition. Li Tongtian took a step forward and said, Ning Yu, I, Li Tongtian, have never been convinced by anyone in my life. Today, I'm convinced by you. I look forward to our next battle. Whoosh. The martial artists in the private room were not stupid. Hearing Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian's words, even a fool could tell that Ning Yu had won. Not only did he win, but he had also won the respect of 2 alchemy geniuses. This was a rare thing. One had to know that Ren Xiangtian was a rare talent in the Alchemy Union and was known as the favorite to win the competition. Who would have thought that he would lose to Ning Yu? As for Li Tongtian, judging from the alchemy skills he had displayed, he was no weaker than Ren Xiangtian. The fact that 2 geniuses were convinced by Ning Yu was enough to prove that Ning Yu had the ability to do so. As for Ren Xiangtian and Li Tongtian's acknowledgement, Ning Yu did not take it to heart. What he was concerned about was what Li Tongtian had promised him in the beginning. Li Tongtian, can you tell me where the mysterious forces from Snow Domain Pavilion are from? Ning Yu's mouth was slightly agape as he spoke to Li Tongtian telepathically. Such an important matter could not be heard by anyone else. I can tell you that they are from Li Tongtian was not someone who would go back on his words. However, just as he was about to tell Ning Yu, he raised an eyebrow and looked towards the entrance of the 2nd Yuan room. There, 2 figures slowly appeared. Swoosh. Apart from Li Tongtian, the rest of the martial artists in the room became respectful when they saw the figure at the front. Father! The eldest prince and the rest hurried over and exclaimed in surprise, Why didn't you tell us in advance that you were coming? It would have been better for me. The middle-aged man at the front waved his hand, gesturing for the eldest prince and the rest to keep quiet. Then, the middle-aged man walked towards Ning Yu, 1 step at a time. Not long after, the middle-aged man stood in front of Ning Yu and looked at Ning Yu from head to toe. Cultivation is blurry, soul power is blurry. As the middle-aged man was looking at Ning Yu was also looking at him. Ning Yu was surprised to find that the middle-aged man seemed to be wrapped in a layer of white fog. Whether it was his soul power or his cultivation, it was difficult for Ning Yu to detect him. There were 2 possibilities for this situation. Firstly, the middle-aged man's soul power and cultivation were very strong. They were so strong that it was terrifying. Secondly, The middle-aged man had a technique to hide his aura and soul power. This caused Zhou Donghuang to be unable to detect his cultivation and the strength of his soul power. No matter which possibility it was enough to show how powerful the middle-aged man was. Ningyu, I said before that as long as you can defeat Li Tongtian and the rest, I will let you see the illusionist who set up the illusion in Yuan Room 3. The middle-aged man was the first to break the silence. He said calmly, Fu Guosheng, come out. Let Ningyu have a taste of your illusion. Sha sha. Actually, when the middle-aged man entered the room, Ningyu had already noticed the skinny man behind him. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, the skinny man did not hesitate at all. He walked directly in front of Ningyu and stood in front of Ningyu. Ningyu's eyes widened slightly as he looked at the skinny man. This glance caused Ningyu's heart to skip a beat. He felt that everything in front of him had changed. At this moment, he was at the edge of a cliff. If he took another step back, he would fall off the cliff. It really is a high-level illusion. After a short moment of shock, Ningyu's expression was emotionless as he said calmly, Buzz buzz. Just as Ningyu finished his sentence, the space in front of him rippled. Then, a martial artist slowly appeared in front of him. This illusion of mine has the ability to confuse one's mind. Chapter 460. Breaking the Illusion. An illusion is an illusion after all. As long as I guard my mind, I won't be affected. Looking at Fu Guosheng, who was not far away, Ningyu said in a deep voice, although the illusion you set up is a high-level illusion, it doesn't affect me at all. Is that so? Fu Guosheng raised his eyebrows and his body became illusory. Soon, Fu Guosheng completely disappeared from Ningyu's sight. Roar. In the next moment, a loud roar was heard. Then, Ningyu saw a huge tiger appear at the place where Fu Guosheng disappeared. Ningyu, I want to see if you will be affected by the illusion. The tiger opened its mouth and roared at the sky. Then, it let out Fu Guosheng's voice. Swoosh. After the roar, the tiger stomped on the ground and charged at Ningyu at an astonishing speed. Rustle. The tiger was extremely fast. Wherever it passed, the wind whistled and rustled. Transforming into a tiger, Ningyu's eyes revealed a grave expression when he saw the tiger constantly charging at him. Although he knew that the tiger was transformed by Fu Guosheng, the realism of the tiger was completely beyond his expectations. Solitaire. Ningyu narrowed his eyes and the soul-severing sword appeared in his hand. With a thrust of the sword, a shocking sword wave formed and slashed at the tiger's body. Chi. Solitaire was very powerful. The moment it came into contact with the tiger, it cut the tiger into two. Swoosh. However, before Ningyu could be excited, he saw the tiger merge into one and charge at him again. Damn it! Cursing, Ningyu did not dare to be slow. He quickly gathered his primordial chi on his fist and met the tiger head-on. Puff! This time, the tiger was pushed back several feet. On the other hand, Ningyu took a small step back. Even so, Ningyu broke into a cold sweat for himself. If he took another small step back, he would fall off the cliff. The illusions set up by high-ranked illusionists were extremely terrifying. The injuries sustained within the illusions would be brought out of the illusions. One could imagine that once Ningyu fell off the cliff, even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured. Ningyu, what do you think of my illusion? After gaining the upper hand, Fu Guosheng did not continue to attack. Instead, he appeared in front of Ningyu and said with a smile, "In front of my illusion, why did you not guard your mind? Looks like I've underestimated you. You're not only an advanced illusionist, but you're also just a step away from advancing to a human-level illusionist." Ningyu's face was extremely cold as he said in a deep voice. The ranks of illusionists were extremely strict. Every level of difference in rank would result in a world of difference in the quality of the illusions created. Below the advanced illusionist were the beginner illusionist and the intermediate illusionist. As for above the advanced illusionist, it was the human-level illusionist, earth-level illusionist, as well as the even higher heaven-level illusionist. In his previous life, the illusionist with a level 9 soul force strength that Ning Yu encountered was precisely a heaven-level illusionist. And Fu Guoxing's soul force strength was peak level 6. Just a step away from advancing to level 7, which was to advance to become a human-level illusionist. You even know about a human-level illusionist. Indeed, not simple. At this moment, Fu Guoxing finally started to take Ning Yu seriously. After all, martial artists who knew about human-level illusionists were few and far between. Generally speaking, in the understanding of many martial artists, illusionists were only divided into beginner, intermediate, and advanced ranks. The higher ranks of illusionists, they had never even heard of them before. Ning Yu, how about we make a bet? Suddenly, Fu Guoxing seemed to have heard something. His brows raised, and he said to Ning Yu, "If you win, not only can I release you out of the illusions, I can even release Lu Wei and the rest from the illusions." On the other hand, speaking up to here, Fu Guoxing paused slightly, then continued, "If you lose, you have to submit to me unconditionally." "Submit to you?" Ning Yu said with a frown. "That's right. If you lose, you have to submit to me." Fu Guoxing nodded and said, "If possible, as a constraint, I hope that you will swear a heavenly Tao oath." "You think that I will definitely lose," Ning Yu said coolly. From Fu Guoxing's expression and attitude, Ning Yu could clearly feel that he thought that he could not win. Since that was the case, he could make this bet with Fu Guoxing. "It's not what I think." Fu Guoxing pursed his lips and said with a faint smile, "But you will definitely fall." "Enough nonsense. You and I each swear a heavenly Tao oath." Ning Yu waved his hand and interrupted Fu Guoxing's words. His words being interrupted by Ning Yu, Fu Guoxing revealed an unhappy look. But he did not get angry. Instead, he swore a heavenly Tao oath in front of Ning Yu. Since Fu Guoxing already swore a heavenly Tao oath, Ning Yu was not willing to fall behind either and directly swore a heavenly Tao oath. "Ning Yu, you have 15 minutes to break the illusion. I wish you good luck." When Fu Guoxing's voice faded, his body became illusory again and gradually fused together with the air. Ning Yu sucked in a deep breath. The soul force in his body poured out in full force and began to probe carefully, hoping to find a way to break the illusion. Swish! When Ning Yu attempted to break the illusion, Fu Guoxing's eyes suddenly snapped open and said to the middle-aged man respectfully, "Your Majesty, Ning Yu has already been trapped in the illusion by me. How long do you give him?" The middle-aged man said coolly. 15 minutes, Fu Guoxing hurriedly said. 15 minutes, huh? The middle-aged man's brows locked tightly and fell into contemplation. In his opinion, with the strength of Ning Yu's soul force, it would be very difficult to break the illusion in 15 minutes. Thinking of this, the middle-aged man turned around and walked towards Feng Zi. After a while, the middle-aged man arrived in front of Feng Zi and said, "You're from the Feng clan of the Lanqing country?" The middle-aged man's tone was unquestionable, giving Feng Zi a deep pressure, causing him to have no choice but to answer honestly, "Yes, I'm from the Feng clan of the Lanqing country." "What is the cultivation of your clan's ancestor?" the middle-aged man asked again. "I'm not sure about the specific cultivation, but 3 years ago, the ancestor's cultivation had already reached a level." Feng Zi opened his mouth and said in a low voice. However, when he mentioned the ancestor's specific cultivation, the 3 words suddenly became very vague, and the surrounding warriors did not hear it. His cultivation was already so high 3 years ago. From this, it seems that the Feng clan's ancestors' cultivation must be even more terrifying now. The others did not hear Feng Zi's words because the middle-aged man had done something to it. However, he heard it clearly. "One more question. Tell me everything you know about Ningyu. After thinking for a while, the middle-aged man continued. I'm not very clear about the specifics. I only know that Ningyu is very strong. An ordinary yin-yang realm. Feng Zi seemed to be controlled as he wanted to tell the middle-aged man everything he knew. Crack. Chapter 461. One day and one night. Crack crack. A cracking sound rang out, followed closely by two more cracking sounds. Hearing these two cracking sounds, Feng Zi's body trembled once more, then he completely woke up. What happened just now? After waking up, Feng Zi's eyes revealed a confused look. He looked left and right and said doubtfully, "Why do I feel like I'm being controlled by someone else?" Poochie. Just at this moment, the sound of blood spurting out mixed with some exclamations resounded in the room. Fu Guosheng. The martial artist who spurted out blood was none other than Fu Guosheng. Ningyu, you actually broke my illusion? Fu Guosheng's eyes widened, his face filled with stupefaction. He never thought that Ningyu would be able to break the illusion he set up in such a short time. Even a yin-yang realm martial artist would not dare to say that they could come out of the illusion so quickly, let alone Ningyu, whose cultivation was only at the late stage of the true martial realm. For Ningyu to be able to do this, it was enough to show that Ningyu's strength was extremely terrifying. I said before, as long as you guard your mind, you won't be affected. After coming out of the illusion, Ningyu glanced at Fu Guosheng, then came to Feng Zi's side. Placing his palm on Feng Zi's shoulder, Ningyu quietly separated a wisp of soul force and entered Feng Zi's body. No wonder your mind was affected, so someone left a wisp of soul force in your body. As the soul force entered Feng Zi's body, Ningyu's expression turned solemn. Needless to say, the soul force in Feng Zi's body was definitely left behind by the middle-aged man, who was the current emperor. As for what the emperor's intentions were, it was obvious that he definitely wanted to know the secrets regarding him. Break for me. Suddenly, Ningyu separated another wisp of soul force and entered Feng Zi's body. Together with the first wisp of soul force, it started a great battle with the soul force left behind by the emperor in Feng Zi's body. Crack. As the soul force left behind by the emperor was relatively weak, it was not long before it was surrounded and turned into nothingness. The dissipation of this soul force did not affect the emperor. Instead, it made him look up to Ningyu. To be able to annihilate his soul force, it could be seen that Ningyu's soul force was still very strong. Your Majesty, I wonder if it's possible to have Fu Guosheng remove the illusion in the third Yuan room and release Lu Wei and the others. Cupping his hands together, Ningyu said, Lu Wei's cultivation is only at the Xiantian realm. It's almost impossible for her to escape from the illusion set up by a high-level illusionist. No problem. Fu Guosheng, remove the illusion in room 3 and let the cultivators inside out. The emperor smiled and waved his hand at Fu Guosheng behind him. Remember, don't hurt anyone. Understood. Fu Guosheng glared fiercely at Ningyu, then turned around and left. The emperor's generous action caused Ningyu to frown slightly. He felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. Logically speaking, the emperor had paid such a huge price to set up the illusion. There was no reason for it to be removed so easily. Originally, Ningyu thought that he would have to bargain with the emperor. Who would have thought that the emperor would be so magnanimous? Just now, Ningyu defeated Li Tongtian and Ren Xiangtian in the alchemy assessment. Who else wants to compete with Ningyu in alchemy? After Fu Guosheng left, the emperor paced back and forth in the room, sweeping his gaze across the cultivators. Then, he said in a deep voice, If there's no one else, I hereby announce that Ningyu is the final winner of the alchemy assessment. Not long ago, Ningyu and Li Tongtian had competed in alchemy. Many cultivators in the room had witnessed it. Among them, the highest-ranked cultivator was only a fourth-grade alchemist. They might not even be able to refine a supreme-grade true martial pill, let alone a supreme-grade true martial pill. Compete with Ningyu? They would lose terribly. They might even lose their underwear. Alright, I hereby announce that the winner of the alchemy assessment is Ningyu. He can cultivate in the ice manner for a day and a night unconditionally. Whoosh! As soon as the Emperor finished speaking, the spacious number 2 yuan private room instantly fell silent. Unconditionally entering the ice manner to cultivate for a day and a night. This treatment was enviable. In the alchemy assessment, Ningyu is the final winner. Now, let's begin the martial assessment. Obviously, the Emperor was very satisfied with the reactions of the warriors. He nodded and continued, the martial arts test is very simple. 2 people will fight each other. The one who can last until the end will become the second warrior to enter the ice mansion unconditionally. The Emperor's words ignited the flames in the hearts of the cultivators. Although they could not defeat Ningyu in the alchemy assessment, they still had a chance in the martial assessment. Oh right. Suddenly, the Emperor seemed to think of something and continued, although Ningyu won in the alchemy assessment, he can still participate in the martial assessment. If he can last until the end of the martial assessment, he can stay in the ice manor for 2 days and 2 nights. The flames in the hearts of the cultivators had been ignited, but the Emperor's words were like a bucket of cold water poured on their hearts, directly extinguishing the flames in their hearts. Not only was Ningyu skilled in alchemy, but his martial strength was also exceptionally strong. Among the cultivators invited by the Emperor, except for Ningyu, who else could take a blow from Elder Tan, who was in the early stage of Yin-Yang realm and not be at a disadvantage? Ningyu frowned. He didn't know what the Emperor wanted. From the beginning until now, the Emperor seemed to be very eager to let him enter the ice manor to cultivate. Why? Shaking his head, Ningyu put these thoughts aside for now. The first martial assessment, Feng Zi vs. Zhou Jianming. The Emperor did not ask for Ningyu's opinion and directly said, if the winner is not decided within 10 minutes, then the one with the lower cultivation wins. Swoosh. As the Emperor's voice fell, Zhou Jianming took a step forward and said in a deep voice, I choose to admit defeat. At the entrance of Tianyuan restaurant, Zhou Jianming had already fought with Feng Zi. At that time, Feng Zi's every attack was aimed at his right hand, causing him to be defeated not long after. Zhou Jianming was not a fool. Feng Zi could beat him last time, so he should be able to beat him this time. Therefore, he chose to admit defeat. He understood the principle of where there's life, there's hope. If he forcefully fought and his right hand was crippled, it would not be worth it. Zhou Jianming admits defeat. Next, Feng Zi vs. Ningyu. Almost at the same time that Zhou Jianming admitted defeat, the Emperor announced the candidates for the second battle. Ningyu vs. Feng Zi. Ningyu was in the late stage of the true martial realm, while Feng Zi was in the early stage of the primal core realm. This was a battle that seemed to have no suspense, but everyone knew that the final winner would definitely be Ningyu. I choose to admit defeat. The result was not out of everyone's expectations. Feng Zi directly chose to admit defeat, without any fancy move. Zhou Jianming's cultivation was far higher than Feng Zi's, but he admitted defeat. Feng Zi's cultivation was far higher than Ningyu's, but he also admitted defeat to Ningyu. Chapter 462. Fighting Ouyang Hai. Since Zhou Jianming and Feng Zi have chosen to admit defeat, then the next match will be between Ningyu and... The Emperor slightly frowned, his eyes slowly swept across the crowd, and finally stopped at the third prince, Ouyang Hai, and said, Higher, fight. Hearing that the next match was between him and Ningyu, the third prince, Ouyang Hai's complexion changed dramatically. Although he had always wanted to have a real fight with Ningyu, he was very clear about the gap between him and Ningyu. Even if Ningyu only used 50% of his strength, he was still not his opponent. Moreover, he and Ningyu were already mortal enemies. If he fought with Ningyu at this time, wouldn't he be seeking death? It was conceivable that Ning Yu would not be lenient. In my opinion, the third prince will definitely admit defeat. I also think so. The third prince is only at the peak of the true martial realm. How could he be Ning Yu's opponent? It's hard to say, after all. The third prince represents the royal family. If he admitted defeat like this, wouldn't he be a disgrace to the royal family? Yeah, if I were the third prince, I would not admit defeat no matter what. Originally, Ouyang Hai was ready to admit defeat, but after hearing the surrounding martial artists' discussion, he swallowed his words. These martial artists were too much. They actually said he represented the royal family? If that was the case, if he admitted defeat again, it would really be a disgrace to the royal family, to the emperor. Ouyang Hai did not care about losing his own face, but he could not afford to lose the royal family and the emperor's face. Therefore, he clenched his teeth and fiercely said, "Ning Yu, others may be afraid of you, but I am not. What does it have to do with me whether you are afraid of me or not?" Ning Yu shrugged and lightly said, "If you want to fight, hurry up, I don't have time to waste with you here. You are going too far." Ouyang Hai did not expect Ning Yu to look down on him so much. For a moment, he was filled with hatred and rushed towards Ning Yu. Whoosh! In order to deal a fatal blow to Ning Yu, Ouyang Hai had practically used all his strength. His speed had also reached the limit of what he could achieve at this stage. Maybe Ouyang Hai can really exchange a few moves with Ning Yu. It is possible. No matter what, Ouyang Hai is also a martial artist at the peak of the true martial realm. His strength cannot be underestimated. That's right, Ouyang Hai is a member of the royal family. He should have. What? When everyone saw Ouyang Hai rushing towards Ning Yu, they began to discuss among themselves. However, before the last cultivator could finish his words, his eyes were filled with shock. Bang! With a muffled sound, Ouyang Hai's body fell backward like a kite with a broken string. Xiao! Just as Ouyang Hai was about to crash into the wall, Old Tan leaped up and caught him firmly. Ning Yu, after being punched in the chest by Ning Yu, Ouyang Hai felt that he had lost all face and shouted angrily. "You are not skilled enough and do not know how to endure. It is easy for you to be blinded by hatred." The emperor directly interrupted Ouyang Hai and said coldly, "Looks like I shouldn't have let you stay in the capital for so long. Go and prepare, we will leave for Shishan City in a few days." Yes. If he was interrupted by someone else, Ouyang Hai might not be happy. However, the one who interrupted him was the current emperor, so he did not have any temper. Glaring fiercely at Ning Yu, Ouyang Hai turned around and left the number 2 yuan room. "Ning Yu, can you still do it?" After Ouyang Hai left, the emperor asked Ning Yu. "Why not? I can do it at any time," Ning Yu said in a deep voice. "That's fine. The next match is between Ning Yu and Li Nan," the emperor said again. "I choose to admit defeat." Li Nan was very smart and chose to admit defeat. His cultivation was only at the middle stage of the primal core stage. Although he was a few levels higher than Ning Yu, his strength was also a few levels lower than Ning Yu's. It could be said that if Ning Yu attacked with all his strength, it would be difficult for him to resist even one move. In this world, people who knew their limits usually did not end up too badly. Li Nan admits defeat. The next match is between Ning Yu and Ren Xiangtian. Almost at the same time when Li Nan admitted defeat, the emperor announced the candidates for the next match. Ning Yu against Ren Xiangtian. "It's finally my turn," Ren Xiangtian murmured with a fervent look in his eyes. Ever since he lost to Ning Yu in alchemy, Ren Xiangtian had always wanted to compete with Ning Yu in martial arts. Now that the opportunity had come, it was inevitable that he was a little excited. Ren Xiangtian is a peerless genius of the Alchemy Union. This battle is going to be interesting. Yes, Ren Xiangtian might be able to compete with Ning Yu. It will probably be a little difficult. Ren Xiangtian's alchemy skills are very high, but in terms of martial arts strength, he might not be able to beat Ning Yu. The surrounding martial artists were talking about it again. However, the general consensus was that Ren Xiangtian was very likely to be no match for Ningyu. Ningyu, you don't have to hold back. I want to see your true strength. Ren Xiangtian took a deep breath and said, I admire you for beating me in alchemy. If you can beat me in martial arts as well, I, Ren Xiangtian, will completely admire you. Don't worry, I won't hold back against an opponent worthy of respect, Ningyu said in a low voice. Good, you're really straightforward. With a cold look in his eyes, Ren Xiangtian immediately rushed towards Ningyu at an extremely fast speed. Chi-chi. Ren Xiangtian's speed was so fast that there was even a hissing sound from the friction with the air. He's finally revealed his cultivation level. Peak Primal Core. Feeling the powerful aura exuding from Ren Xiangtian, Ningyu's eyes revealed a serious look. Ren Xiangtian was different from Zhou Jianming. Although they were both peak Primal Core martial artists, Ren Xiangtian was more than a level stronger than Zhou Jianming. After all, Ren Xiangtian's soul power was much stronger than Zhou Jianming's. Excluding soul power, Zhou Jianming could still compete with Ren Xiangtian, but with soul power, he was definitely no match for Ren Xiangtian. Ningyu, eat my fist, immovable king fist. Just as Ningyu was slightly stunned, Ren Xiangtian had already arrived in front of Ningyu. His fist contained a violent wave of yuan qi as it slammed into Ningyu's chest. Underworld dominating palm. In the face of such a fierce punch from Ren Xiangtian, Ningyu did not dare to be careless. He immediately gathered the yuan qi in his sea of consciousness on his palm and pushed it out, colliding with Ren Xiangtian's fist. Bang! The fist and the palm collided, accompanied by a muffled sound, and then the two figures simultaneously retreated. Ren Xiangtian retreated to the edge of the room before he stabilized himself. However, a serious look appeared on his face. On the other hand, Ningyu only retreated 3 steps before he stabilized himself. At the same time, his expression did not change, as if he was not affected at all. The first exchange between the two sides was obvious. Chapter 463. Requesting a duel. No, if I'm not wrong, this is merely 50% of Ningyu's strength. Elder Tan had exchanged blows with Ningyu not long ago, so he had a very good understanding of Ningyu's strength. Although Ningyu had gained the upper hand in the first exchange with Ren Xiangtian, Elder Tan was very clear that Ningyu had only used 50% of his strength at most. In that case, isn't Ren Xiangtian bound to lose? The Emperor's expression was a little ugly as he asked in a low voice. In this private room, he was most optimistic about the 2 martial artists who could contend with Ningyu. One was Ren Xiangtian, and the other was Li Tongtian. Relatively speaking, Li Tongtian's strength was slightly stronger than Ren Xiangtian, but it wasn't to the extent of defying the heavens. If Ren Xiangtian was easily defeated by Ningyu, then it would be very difficult for Li Tongtian to defeat Ningyu. It's hard to say. As a peerless genius of the Alchemy Union, it's impossible for Ren Xiangtian to not have a trump card. Elder Tan shook his head and said, if Ningyu wants to defeat Ren Xiangtian, he has to use at least 80% of his strength. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to defeat Ren Xiangtian. Bang! Just as Elder Tan and the Emperor were conversing, Ningyu and Ren Xiangtian clashed once again. When the second fist collided, Ningyu and Ren Xiangtian each took a few steps back before they could stabilize themselves. Only this time, Ningyu took 3 steps back while Ren Xiangtian only took 5 steps back. Haha, it's been a long time since I've fought to my heart's content. Ningyu, take another punch from me. After the 2 punches, Ren Xiangtian rose from the ground and charged at Ningyu while laughing heartily. It's getting more and more powerful. Looking at Ren Xiangtian, who was approaching him, and the violent yuan qi contained in Ren Xiangtian's fists, Ningyu revealed a solemn expression. The power of Ren Xiangtian's fists was getting stronger and stronger. He only used 30% of his strength to block the first punch. he used 40% of his strength to block the second punch. If he didn't use 50% of his strength for this third punch, it would be hard to block it. Dark Tyrant Palm. In the next moment, Ning Yu's eyes turned cold. He quickly waved his palm and launched another palm attack. Bang! Another muffled bang resounded, and then both Ning Yu and Ren Xiangtian took a few steps back. Look! Ning Yu and Ren Xiangtian fought to a draw. Ren Xiangtian seems to be getting stronger? Of course. You might not know this, but Ren Xiangtian used a heaven-ranked martial technique, the immovable Wheel King Fist. What's so special about the immovable Wheel King Fist? A martial artist asked. Let me explain. Hearing the discussions of the crowd, the first prince smiled and said, Immovable King Fist, a superior grade heaven-ranked martial technique. There are a total of 10 punches. The most special thing about the immovable King Fist is that each punch is stronger than the last. The power of the last punch can even break space for a short period of time. Whoosh! As the first prince finished speaking, the surrounding martial artists were in an uproar. Breaking space could only be done by a yin-yang realm martial artist or some extremely abnormal peak primal core martial artist. The immovable Wheel King Fist was so powerful? It could break space for a short period of time? Humph! Although the immovable Wheel King Fist is powerful, Ren Xiangtian can only perform up to 5 punches at most. Feng Zi snorted and said, The 5th punch of the immovable Wheel King Fist is still far from enough to defeat Ning Yu. Hearing Feng Zi's words, the first prince was not angry. Instead, he raised his eyebrows and smiled evilly. Why don't we make a bet? Bet on what? Feng Zi said coldly. Simple. Bet on whether Ren Xiangtian can perform. The corner of Feng Zi's mouth curled up. Just as he was about to say what the bet was, a look of extreme shock appeared on his face. Bang! On the other side of the room, Ning Yu raised his speed to the limit and sidestepped Ren Xiangtian's 4th punch. Then, Ning Yu threw a punch that landed squarely on Ren Xiangtian's back. Ning Yu used 60% of his strength in this punch, and Ren Xiangtian's attention was on the immovable Wheel King Fist, so he was knocked back several feet by Ning Yu and hit the wall of the room. Ren Xiangtian spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, his face slightly pale. He lost. Ren Xiangtian also lost to Ning Yu. Ren Xiangtian lost to Ning Yu, then who else here is a match for Ning Yu? I'm afraid only Li Tongtian can compete with him. Ren Xiangtian's defeat caused an uproar in the second Yuan room. Based on the performance of Ning Yu, it was very likely that he would also come out on top in the martial arts assessment. In that case, Ning Yu would be able to stay in the Ice Mansion for 2 days and 2 nights. Your Highness, what did you want to bet with me? I didn't hear you clearly just now, can you say it again? At this moment, Feng Zi came in front of the eldest prince and said with a smile. You. The eldest prince's face was livid with anger, but at the same time, he was glad that he didn't say the contents of the bet. Otherwise, wouldn't he be so embarrassed? He didn't expect Ning Yu to defeat Ren Xiangtian so quickly, and the victory was so sudden. Ning Yu, I'm completely convinced this time. Ren Xiangtian stood up from the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said to Ning Yu. However, he quickly changed the topic and said in a low voice, But don't let your guard down. I'm looking forward to fighting with you in the alchemy competition. I'm afraid it won't be so easy for you to defeat me then. I'll be waiting for you, Ning Yu said solemnly. Although Ning Yu had defeated Ren Xiangtian in both martial arts and alchemy, he knew very well that Ren Xiangtian was not a simple person. The strength of a 5th-grade soul power and the martial arts of a peak primal core practitioner. There were still a few days before the alchemy competition. If Ren Xiangtian improved by then, it would be very difficult for him to defeat Ren Xiangtian. Goodbye. Ren Xiangtian cupped his fists at Ning Yu, then bid farewell to the emperor and left the private room without looking back. Ren Xiangtian's departure caused the other martial artists in the private room to become serious. I admit defeat. Before long, an early primal core martial artist admitted defeat and left the private room. I admit defeat too. I give up. I give up. After the first martial artist admitted defeat, it seemed to cause a chain reaction. Following that, most of the martial artists in the private room who hadn't fought with Ning Yu chose to admit defeat. Of course, there were still 3 who didn't admit defeat. One was the first prince, another was Li Tongtian. The last was the third prince, Ouyang Yuan. Father, I request to fight in the next match. Suddenly, the first prince stepped forward and knelt on one knee in front of the emperor. He said in a low voice, I want to have a martial arts duel with Ning Yu. The first prince's sudden action caused the emperor to frown slightly in surprise. But very quickly, he recovered and was happy for the first prince's quick wit. Ning Yu was at his weakest now, and the first prince's request to have a duel with Ning Yu was undoubtedly the best opportunity. Chapter 464. 3 Moves Whoosh. The first prince's unreasonable request instantly caused an uproar in the room. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? Ning Yu had just gone through a great battle, so he was definitely not in his peak condition. The first prince's request to spar with Ning Yu was obviously an opportunistic move. Whoosh. The martial artists in the room once again shifted their gaze to the emperor, trying to see if he would agree to the first prince's request. Ning Yu, do you want to take a break? The emperor did not answer the first prince immediately, but looked at Ning Yu instead. As the emperor of the Great Xia Kingdom, Ouyang Ba was very smart. He knew that if he agreed to the first prince's request now, it would undoubtedly leave a bad impression in the hearts of the genius martial artists. Although he did not really care about the bad impression, it was better not to. There's no need for that. Since the first prince is so interested, I'll spar with him. How could Ning Yu not know the emperor's intention? As the saying went, the talented were bold. Although he had consumed a lot of energy when he fought with Ren Xiangtian, it was still relatively easy for him to fight with the first prince. Ha ha ha, heroes indeed come from the young. Let's not waste any more time. Hurry up and fight. I'll be the judge. After receiving the confirmation from Ning Yu, Ouyang Ba laughed out loud and said, Don't overdo it. Remember not to hurt your opponent. Yes. The first prince Ouyang Ming cupped his fists, then turned to Ning Yu and said, You've consumed a lot of energy, so I'll let you have 3 moves first. Are you sure you want to let me have 3 moves first? Ning Yu hesitated, as if he did not hear the first prince's words. Cut the crap. I've made a promise. Oh no. Ouyang Ming was obviously a little impatient. However, before he could finish his words, his eyes widened and he quickly retreated. He saw Ning Yu rising from the ground and appearing in front of him at a shocking speed. Damn it! Ouyang Ming cursed and raised his right hand, which collided with Ning Yu's fist. Bang! Next, a clear sound was heard, then Ouyang Ming's body fell backward like a kite with a broken string. Xiao! Elder Tan reacted quickly and caught Ouyang Ming just as his back was about to hit the wall. Ning Yu, you cheated. Once he stabilized himself, he pushed Elder Tan away and pointed at Ning Yu. How dare you sneak an attack on me? Sigh, this kind of consensual thing, how can it be considered a sneak attack? At most, it can only be said that you are not skilled enough. Ning Yu waved his hand and said indifferently, You said that you would give me 3 moves. This is only the first move. There are still 2 more moves. Are you ready? Ouyang Ming's face turned green when he heard what Ning Yu said, and he wanted so badly to kill Ning Yu right away. However, he knew that he couldn't do that. After all, he had promised to take 3 hits from Ning Yu, but now he had only taken 1. Come on, there are still 2 more moves. Ouyang Ming took a deep breath and calmed down. Ouyang Ming's calmness was a little scary, and it even made Ning Yu feel a little dazed. Did Yangming take the wrong medicine? Otherwise, how could he be so calm? Suddenly, Ning Yu's heart trembled, and his face was gloomy. This was because Ning Yu discovered a special aura on the first prince, and this aura seemed to be somewhat similar to Elder Tan's. If it wasn't for Ning Yu's strong soul perception, he definitely wouldn't have discovered this clue. Eat my second punch. Even though he had discovered something unusual on the first prince, Ning Yu couldn't expose it. The only thing he could do now was to defeat the first prince within 3 moves. Otherwise, there was a high possibility of unforeseen event. Come at me. Facing Ning Yu's second punch, the first prince did not retreat, but advanced instead. He took a step forward, and his fist collided with Ning Yu's fist. Bam! This time, the first prince did not retreat even half a step. Instead, it was Ning Yu who took a few steps back before he could stabilize himself. What's going on? How could Ning Yu be at a disadvantage in the second punch? Seeing that Ning Yu was at a disadvantage, Feng Zi's expression changed drastically, and he revealed a look of disbelief. He was well aware of the first prince's strength. The first prince was only slightly stronger than him, and even if Feng Zi used his trump card, the outcome of the battle was still unknown. It could be said that if Ning Yu wanted to defeat the first prince, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. Why was Ning Yu at a disadvantage in the second exchange? The first prince's strength seems to have increased by quite a bit in an instant. At the side, Li Tongtian frowned, and he vaguely felt that something was wrong. Li Tongtian's soul perception was not weak, and it was even on par with Ning Yu's. If Ning Yu could sense the difference in the first prince, Li Tongtian would naturally be able to as well. However, Li Tongtian was not very familiar with the unique aura on Old Tan. He only knew that the first prince's strength had increased, but he did not know that it was due to Old Tan's help. Impossible, Big Brother can't possibly be this strong. The sixth prince, Ouyang Yuan, could not help but shake his head and exclaim. As he was fighting for the position of crown prince, Ouyang Yuan was very familiar with the first prince's strength. The first prince was much stronger than him, but compared to Ning Yu, the difference was like heaven and earth. Not to mention one first prince, even if there were 5 or 10 of them, they would not be a match for Ning Yu. Your Majesty, should we severely injure Ning Yu, or, on the other side, Old Tan stretched out his palm and drew a line across his neck. Don't act rashly. What you need to do is to let your soul power enter Ning Yu's body and go into hibernation. I need to know what he's going to do next. Ouyang Ba interrupted Old Tan and said in a deep voice. Perhaps I can find the key to break that formation from Ning Yu. Ouyang Ba mumbled. Ning Yu, there's still one last move. Hurry up and don't waste my time. After gaining the upper hand in one move, the first prince curled his lips into a sinister smile. He hooked his pinky finger at Ning Yu and said sinisterly, After the third move, I'll have to do it myself. As you wish. Ning Yu's eyes turned cold and he immediately leaped. At the same time, his fist, which contained extremely violent primordial qi, appeared in front of the first prince in the blink of an eye. The iron-like fist gradually enlarged in the first prince's eyes. Hee, this punch can't hurt me. Yangming did not pay much attention to the fist that was slowly expanding in his pupils. After a faint smile, he took a step forward and stuck out his chest, intending to resist Ning Yu's punch. You're courting death. Don't blame me. Ning Yu turned to look at Old Tan, then the primordial qi in his sea of consciousness gushed out again and gathered on his fist. Oh no. First prince, retreat quickly. On the other side, Old Tan's face changed when he saw Ning Yu's gaze and the violent primordial qi on Ning Yu's fist. He quickly shouted in his heart, This punch is too powerful. It'll be difficult for you to block it. Oh no. Upon hearing Old Tan's words, the first prince turned around slightly with a confused look on his face. Chapter 465. Defeat Bang. Following that, a muffled sound was heard as Yangming fell backward. This time, Yangming was not so lucky. When he was repelled, Elder Tan seemed to have suffered a serious injury as well, so he did not go forward to receive him. Bang! Without Elder Tan's help, Yangming directly had intimate contact with the private room's wall. Poochie! Yangming spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura became rather weak, and he was extremely pale. First Prince, 3 moves have passed. After defeating Yangming, Ningyu remarked, "I didn't waste your time." Puff! Yangming spat out another mouthful of blood when he heard Ningyu, and he trembled with rage. "Ningyu, those 3 moves don't count. Let's do it again." Yangming stood up with difficulty and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "A loss is a loss. Go back and think about why you lost today." At that instant, Ouyangba said in a deep voice. Yangming's defeat had obviously exceeded Ouyangba's expectation. After all, Yangming was not fighting alone. He had Elder Tan, who was at the early stage of yin-yang state, behind him. If Ningyu could defeat Yangming, did that not mean that even Elder Tan was no match for him? Although he was extremely shocked in his heart, since Ningyu had won the duel, it was inappropriate for Ouyangba to say anything. He could only say in a loud voice, "Ningyu is the winner of this duel." Subsequently, Ouyangba swept his gaze across Ouyang Yuan and Li Tongtian. Up until now, the only martial artists in the room who had not fought with Ningyu were the 2 of them. Ouyang Yuan could basically be eliminated. If Ningyu wanted to defeat him, it would be effortless. Li Tongtian is very strong. Who knows, he might be able to defeat Ningyu now. Ouyangba's eyes darted around as he tried to come up with a countermeasure. He was trying to come up with a way for Ningyu to fight Li Tongtian. "Father, I forfeit." Ouyang Yuan knew that he was no match for Ningyu, so he simply gave up. Originally, he had been worried that directly forfeiting would affect the fight for the position of Crown Prince. However, now that the first prince and the third prince had both been defeated, it would be wise for him to forfeit. "Ningyu, I know you can continue to fight, but it would be unfair to you. So, you should rest for an hour. You can fight Li Tongtian after that." After Ouyang Yuan gave up, Ouyangba raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, "Let me know if you have any requests. I'll try my best to fulfill them." "I don't need to rest." As soon as Ouyangba finished his words, Ningyu shook his head and said calmly, "You don't need to rest?" Ouyangba frowned slightly, not knowing what Ningyu was up to. Could it be that Ningyu was so confident in himself? He could defeat Li Tongtian without resting. One had to know that Li Tongtian was extremely powerful. Even at his peak, Ningyu would have to go through a lot of trouble to defeat Li Tongtian. Now that Ningyu was not at his peak, defeating Li Tongtian would be even more difficult. "You think you can defeat me without resting? You're quite arrogant." Li Tongtian revealed a look of displeasure. Ningyu's words were obviously not giving him face, which made him very angry. Initially, he had planned to use only 80% of his strength to fight Ningyu. In his opinion, it would be difficult for Ningyu to recover to his peak within an hour. Even if he won against Ningyu who was not at his peak, it would be an unfair victory. Now Li Tongtian had changed his mind. He wanted to use his full strength to let Ningyu know how powerful he was. "That's right, I don't need to rest." Ningyu nodded. Following that, Ningyu said something that shocked the crowd. "Because I give up." Whoosh. As soon as Ningyu finished speaking, almost all the martial artists in the spacious second Yuan booth, including Ouyangba and Li Tongtian, were in disbelief. Give up? If this was said by someone else, it might not cause too much of a commotion. However, when it was said by Ningyu, it was a little unbelievable. Could it be that Ningyu was injured, or did Ningyu know that he was no match for Li Tongtian? However, judging from Ningyu's performance, it did not look like he was injured, nor did it look like he was no match for Li Tongtian. However, why did Ning Yu give up? A series of questions appeared in the minds of the crowd. Finally, Li Tongtian took a step forward and said, Ning Yu, what do you mean by this? Li Tongtian was very angry. He felt that he had lost face by using such a method to win the final martial arts assessment. The Sandpiper and the Clam fight. Ning Yu did not answer Li Tongtian directly. Instead, he came to his side with his back facing Ouyang Ba and the rest. His mouth was slightly open. Lip reading. At this moment, Ning Yu used lip reading to communicate with Li Tongtian. Ouyang Ba was very strong, and even his soul power was extremely strong. If he were to use soul telepathy now, he might be discovered by Ouyang Ba. Therefore, Ning Yu decided to use lip reading. No matter how strong Ouyang Ba was, without seeing Ning Yu's mouth, it was hard for him to know what Ning Yu was talking about. Li Tongtian was no fool. The moment Ning Yu opened his mouth, he realized the severity of the problem. Taking a deep breath, Li Tongtian turned around and stood side by side with Ning Yu. He said in a deep voice, "The fisherman reaps the benefits. When we go to the ice manor later, are you my friend or foe?" Ning Yu asked. "Friend, not foe," Li Tongtian said. After getting a definite answer from Li Tongtian, Ning Yu smiled and did not continue speaking. Ning Yu had always felt that Li Tongtian was not simple. His martial arts skills were no weaker than his own. If they were to continue fighting, it was hard to tell who would win. Since he did not know if he could defeat Li Tongtian, it was better to have one more ally than one more enemy. Since Ning Yu has given up, the final winner of the martial arts assessment is Li Tongtian. Ouyang Ba's gaze lingered on Ning Yu for a second, before shifting to Li Tongtian and saying, "I've said it before, no matter the winner of the martial arts assessment or the winner of the alchemy assessment, they can enter the ice mansion unconditionally to cultivate for a day and a night. Now, I hereby announce that both Ning Yu and Li Tongtian can enter the ice manor unconditionally to cultivate for a day and a night." Whoosh! Although they knew that the winners of both assessments could enjoy such a great treatment, the crowd was still shocked when Ouyang Ba made the announcement. Cultivating for a day and a night in the ice manor, this treatment was truly heaven-defying. The rest of the cultivators can leave Tianyuan Tower. Ning Yu and Li Tongtian, follow me to the ice manor. Ouyang Ba waved his hand. Although it seemed like a casual statement, it was actually unquestionable. "Your Majesty, can you wait for a moment?" Ning Yu asked hesitantly. "Sure." Ouyang Ba was about to leave, but he stopped when he heard Ning Yu's words. "Thank you." After expressing his gratitude, Ning Yu came to Ouyang Yuan's side and said in a deep voice, "Sixth Prince, I'll leave Feng Zi and Lu Wei to you for the time being. I hope you can ensure their safety." "No problem. As long as I'm here, I guarantee nothing will happen to them." Chapter 466. In the palace in Ouyang Yuan's heart, Ning Yu had entrusted Feng Zi and Lu Wei to him because he trusted him completely. Ning Yu was so powerful. If he could tie Ning Yu to him completely, Ouyang Yuan believed that he would have at least a 50% chance of becoming the crown prince. Ouyang Yuan secretly made up his mind to ensure the safety of Lu Wei and the rest even if he had to use all his strength. "Thank you." Ning Yu cupped his fists and said, "After I leave Ice Mansion, I'll visit you personally to thank you." Then, Ning Yu came to Feng Zi's side and said, "Feng Zi, you know what to do." Understood. Feng Zi had always felt guilty about Lu Wei and the rest being trapped in the illusion. Now that there was a chance, he naturally would not miss it. "You have to be flexible in everything." Ning Yu gave Feng Zi a profound look, but didn't say anything else. "The two of you, follow me." Seeing that Ning Yu was silent, Ouyang Ba said in a deep voice, "To Ice Mansion." As he spoke, Ouyang Ba moved and left the box. Ning Yu and Li Tongtian looked at each other and followed closely. "Let's go to the third Yuan box." After Ning Yu and the rest left the room, The sixth Prince Ouyang Yuan did not hesitate and immediately walked towards the third Yuan box. Ouyang Yuan did not want to miss this rare opportunity. As long as he could ensure the safety of Lu Wei and the rest until Ningyu came out, then Ningyu would owe him a favor. Knowing Ningyu's character, he would definitely help him when he fought for the title of Crown Prince. Feng Zi already felt guilty towards Ningyu, so he naturally followed behind Ouyang Yuan. Ningyu had asked him to help take care of Lu Wei and the rest. In the end, he had come out of the illusion, but Lu Wei and the rest were trapped in the illusion. This time, he had to ensure the safety of Lu Wei and the others no matter what. Sha. Ningyu did not know what Ouyang Yuan and Feng Zi were thinking. At this moment, he was following behind Ouyang Ba, shuttling back and forth in the Imperial Palace. The Tianyuan Tower was not located in the Imperial Palace. Therefore, after leaving the Tianyuan Tower, Ningyu, Ouyang Ba, and the others immediately rushed to the Imperial Palace. Not long after, they arrived at the palace. Although the Imperial Palace was relatively large, Ningyu and the others were not slow. After walking for a quarter of an hour, they stopped in front of a luxurious palace. "Your Majesty, aren't we going to the Ice Mansion? Why did you bring us here?" Li Tongtian seemed to have been to the Ice Mansion before. Therefore, he asked curiously when Ouyang Ba stopped. It's getting late. In my opinion, you guys should rest here for the night. I'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning, and we'll head to the Ice Mansion together. Ouyang Ba said with a smile. That's reasonable. Li Tongtian mumbled as he lifted his head to look at the darkening sky. Have a good rest tonight. I'll ask these 2 guards to guard the main hall. You can call them if you need anything. Ouyang Ba pointed at the 2 guards at the entrance of the main hall. Half-step Yin-Yang Realm. Ningyu followed Ouyang Ba's finger and looked at the entrance of the main hall. He wouldn't have known if he hadn't taken a look, but the moment he did, he was shocked. The 2 guards at the entrance of the main hall had a cultivation base of half-step Yin-Yang Realm. Using half-step Yin-Yang Realm martial artists to guard the entrance? The Imperial Palace was not that powerful. In other words, there must be a reason why Ouyang Ba was doing this. Rest early, someone will fetch you tomorrow morning. Ouyang Ba smiled at Ningyu and the others, before he left without looking back. Li Tongtian, I think you've been to the Ice Mansion before. Looking at Ouyang Ba's back, Ningyu turned around and asked in a deep voice, Is the Ice Mansion far from here? Let's talk inside. Li Tongtian did not answer Ningyu's question immediately. Instead, he gave Ningyu a look and walked into the main hall. Ningyu understood and didn't stay in front of the hall. He also entered the hall. The main hall was luxuriously decorated, but Ningyu and Li Tongtian did not have the time to admire it. They randomly picked a room and went in. Creak. After closing the door, Ningyu and Li Tongtian unleashed their soul energy and carefully checked the room. A moment later, Ningyu and Li Tongtian withdrew their soul energy at the same time. No problem. Almost at the same time, the 2 of them spoke. In fact, it was no wonder that Ningyu and the others were being cautious. Ouyang Ba said they were going to the Ice Mansion, but he changed his mind and brought them to this luxurious palace. To be honest, there were plenty of places to receive guests in the palace, but this luxurious palace did not look like a place to receive guests. Therefore, it was never wrong for Ningyu and the others to be cautious. Ningyu, I've been to the Ice Mansion before, but that was a few years ago. After confirming that the room was safe, Li Tongtian said, To be precise, the Ice Mansion is very far away from this palace. What do you mean? Ningyu raised his eyebrows and asked. We're on the west side of the palace, while the Ice Mansion is on the east side. Li Tongtian said in a deep voice, I'm not sure why the Emperor brought us here. East and west, what the hell is the Emperor up to? Ningyu took a deep breath and his expression turned serious. There's always a way out. Ningyu, I'm impressed by you. Oh no. Li Tongtian shrugged and was about to say something, but his eyes dimmed and he pushed Ningyu away. Boom. In the next moment, A beam of cold light descended from the sky and hit the ground between Ning Yu and Li Tongtian. Crack! The beam of cold light was extremely powerful. The bluestone floor was instantly blasted into a huge hole. The hole was more than a meter deep. Such power was truly terrifying. Swoosh! However, before Ning Yu and Li Tongtian could exclaim in shock, they saw a figure descending from the sky above the room. This figure was covered in a black robe and his face could not be seen at all. Yin Yang stage. Middle stage. Feeling the powerful aura emanating from the black-robed warrior, Ning Yu's heart sank. Ning Yu was well aware of his strength. If he used all his trump cards, he could go up against a peak early Yin Yang realm warrior. However, against a mid Yin Yang realm warrior, especially one as powerful as the black-robed warrior before him, there was almost no chance of victory. The black-robed warrior before him was very strong. At the very least, he was much stronger than Tujan. Back then, even Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor were no match for Tujan. Therefore, to defeat this black-robed warrior before him was harder than reaching the heavens. In contrast to Ning Yu's astonishment, Li Tongtian's face was no less astonished. In fact, he was even more astonished. His strength was on par with Ning Yu's, perhaps even slightly weaker than Ning Yu's. Even Ning Yu was no match for this black-robed warrior, much less him. Kiki, a peak primal core warrior and a late-stage martial artist. Not bad at all. Chapter 467. Chapter 467. Robbery, who are you? Ning Yu tried his best to calm himself down as he shouted. Ning Yu knew better than anyone else that the black-robed cultivator was at the intermediate stage of the Yin-Yang realm. He was no match for him if he fought him head-on. The only thing he could do now was to stall for time and let Li Tongtian try to communicate with the outside world. Don't waste your energy. I've already set up a restriction in this room. With the strength of Li Tongtian's soul, he won't be able to break it. The black-robed cultivator seemed to know what Ning Yu was planning. He smiled and said, "If you know what's good for you, surrender now and hand over all your treasures and elixirs. As long as I'm satisfied, I can spare your lives." Robbery? Ning Yu and Li Tongtian exclaimed at the same time, feeling incredulous. This was the royal palace and security was tight. The black-robed cultivator had snuck into the palace without anyone knowing and even set up a soul restriction in the room. It was definitely not as simple as robbery. What nonsense are you talking about? You, hurry up and hand over the storage ring on your wrist. The black-robed cultivator seemed a little impatient as he said coldly to Ning Yu, "Otherwise, I'll let you know why flowers are so red." I see. Hearing the black-robed cultivator's words, Ning Yu's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely understood what was going on. The black-robed cultivator's robbery was fake, but he wanted the storage ring on his wrist. Moreover, this was the royal palace. A frightening thought surfaced in Ning Yu's mind. The black-robed cultivator took orders from the emperor and was sent by the emperor. The more he thought about it, the more Ning Yu felt that it was possible. In the end, his expression turned completely cold. This was the royal palace. It was not that there were no cultivators who could come and go as they pleased. However, all of them were extremely powerful. At the very least, the black-robed cultivator before him could not do it. Why are you dawdling and forcing me to do it myself? Seeing that Ning Yu was unmoved, the black-robed cultivator rose from the ground and charged towards Ning Yu. Oh no! The sudden movement of the black-robed cultivator caused Ning Yu's expression to change drastically. Without much time to think, he immediately retreated. At the same time, in the process of retreating, Ning Yu took out the broken soul sword and slashed out a sword ray with a backhand. Insignificant skill. The black-robed cultivator obviously did not put this sword light in his eyes. With a casual flick of his hand, a cold light flew out and collided with Ning Yu's sword light. Chi-chi. When the two collided, the result was not unexpected. The sword light that Ningyu slashed out was instantly shattered. The cold light that the black-robed cultivator flung out was attacking Ningyu at an astonishing speed. Solitaire. At the critical moment, Ningyu injected the essence energy in his sea of consciousness into the absolute soul sword and slashed out a shocking sword wave. Chi. The sword wave and the cold light collided, and a crisp sound rang out. Then, both of them disappeared from the world. Wow, you're not bad. You managed to block 30% of my strength in 2 moves. You're not simple indeed. Seeing that Ningyu had blocked his cold light, the black-robed cultivator did not continue attacking. Instead, his lips curled into a sinister smile. You better be prepared, because I'm going to use my full strength. You're too noisy. If you want to fight, let's fight. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Just then, Li Tongtian snorted coldly and interrupted the black-robed cultivator. He said in a deep voice, "Don't be fooled by your mid-stage yin-yang realm cultivation. If Ningyu and I join forces, we might be able to take you on." Ah! Even though he was interrupted, the black-robed cultivator was not angry. After laughing maniacally, he said coldly, "I'd like to see how you're going to fight me together. Ningyu, there's no point in holding back now. Why don't we both use our trump cards and fight this yin-yang intermediate stage cultivator today?" Li Tongtian hollered at Ningyu and took out a pill from his robes. In a flash, Li Tongtian popped the elixir into his mouth. Crack! The next moment, a cracking sound could be heard from within Li Tongtian's body, as if something had been unlocked. Following that, Li Tongtian's aura shot up like a rocket, soaring upwards. Pinnacle of primal core, half a step to yin-yang stage, early yin-yang stage. In a short span of time, Li Tongtian's cultivation had shot up from the pinnacle of primal core to the early yin-yang stage. This speed of advancement was truly terrifying. Glancing at Ningyu, Li Tongtian's hands began to vibrate in a strange rhythm. In the end, all the yuan qi in the room seemed to be affected, making a buzzing sound. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. In the next moment, a fist wrapped in violent yuan qi shot out and smashed towards the black-robed cultivator's head. Yuan qi surged and was exceptionally cold. "Humph! You overestimate yourself." Faced with the fist that was approaching him, the black-robed cultivator snorted coldly and threw out a punch. It collided with Li Tongtian's fist. Bam! The two fists collided and the two figures retreated in unison. Li Tongtian retreated all the way to the edge of the room and only stabilized himself when his back hit the wall. On the other hand, the black-robed cultivator only retreated 3 steps. At this moment, it was clear who had the upper hand. Although Li Tongtian had used the elixir to raise his cultivation to the early yin-yang stage, in terms of raw power, he was still far from the black-robed cultivator. They were not even on the same level. Solitaire. How could Ningyu let Li Tongtian fight alone? With a flick of his sleeves, the red demon sword appeared. Following that, the yuan qi in Ningyu's mind surged and flowed into the red demon sword. When the yuan qi in the red demon sword reached its limit, Ningyu stabbed out. In an instant, a shocking sword wave formed and slashed at the black-robed cultivator's head. "Initially, I only wanted to take your Dharma treasures and elixirs. Since you guys are seeking death, don't blame me." Li Tongtian and Ningyu's continuous attacks seemed to have angered the black-robed cultivator, causing him to fly into a rage. After his rage subsided, he launched a torrential attack. Swoosh! The black-robed cultivator moved quickly and appeared in front of Ningyu in the blink of an eye. His fist carried a violent gust of yuan qi and slammed towards Ningyu's chest. If Ningyu was unlucky enough to be hit by this punch, he would be crippled even if he did not die. This was because the black-robed cultivator had used 80% of his strength in this punch. 80% of a yin-yang intermediate stage cultivator's strength was enough to kill an ordinary early yin-yang stage cultivator. Damn it! Seeing that the black-robed cultivator's fist was getting closer and closer, Ningyu cursed under his breath. Then, he gathered all the yuan qi in his mind to his wrist, intending to fight head-on with the black-robed cultivator. Hee, a late true martial realm cultivator dares to fight head-on with me? You really overestimate yourself. Oh no. Ningyu's actions made the black-robed cultivator smile. However, before he could finish the word strength, his expression changed and he retreated immediately. Swoosh. However, the black-robed cultivator's retreat was obviously slower. Chapter 468. Out of the blue bam. The speed of Cold Gleam was extremely fast. It arrived in front of the black-robed cultivator almost instantaneously. Under the astonished gaze of the black-robed cultivator, it slammed into his chest. With a dull thud, the black-robed cultivator's body fell backward. Swoosh. After knocking the black-robed cultivator back unexpectedly, Cold Gleam turned around and landed steadily in front of Ningyu. A dog. Seeing Cold Gleam's true appearance, Li Tongtian's mouth was agape in disbelief. He had not expected a black dog to suddenly jump out of Ningyu's storage ring. The most ridiculous thing was that this black dog had actually knocked back the black-robed cultivator. Although the black-robed cultivator did not seem to be in any serious trouble, the fact that it could knock him back was enough to show how powerful this black dog was. Dark Emperor! Li Tongtian did not recognize the black dog in front of him, but Ningyu was very familiar with it. Not long ago, the Dark Emperor was bold and daring enough to devour 200,000 Supreme Essence crystals. Initially, Ningyu thought that the Dark Emperor would need at least a month to completely refine the 200,000 Supreme Essence crystals in his body. Who would have thought that the Dark Emperor would refine all the Supreme Essence crystals in his body so quickly? He was indeed the king of the Heaven-Devouring Hound clan, the purple-gold Heaven-Devouring Hound. Ningyu, long time no see. I've missed you. The Dark Emperor was still the same as he raised his proud head and said, Who are you? No, what kind of dog are you? Just then, the black-robed cultivator was enraged and berated. If he had been knocked back by a Yin-Yang realm cultivator, he would not have said anything. But to be knocked back by a dog, he could not tolerate it no matter what. Furthermore, he was a mid-stage Yin-Yang realm cultivator, while the black dog in front of him was only at the pinnacle primal core realm. Holy F***ck, how dare you say that about your grandfather? I can't tolerate it. What the Dark Emperor hated the most was others calling him a dog, so when he heard the black-robed martial artist's words, he immediately cursed and said, Today, I'll let you see the strength of your royal grandfather. The moment the word strength fell, the Dark Emperor leaped forward and used its huge dog claws to grab at the black-robed martial artist's head. You dare to call yourself Imperial Grandfather in front of me? Fine, I'll have a change of taste today. The black-robed cultivator clearly did not place the Emperor in his eyes. Not only was he not nervous, his lips curled up into an evil smile as he said, Eat dog meat, drink dog soup. Eat your grandpa. The Dark Sovereign was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he appeared before the black-robed cultivator and swung his huge claws down heavily. Whoosh! How could the black-robed martial artist allow the Dark Emperor to hit him? At the critical moment, his body quickly dodged to the side, barely dodging the Dark Emperor's fatal blow. Following that, the black-robed martial artist and the Dark Sovereign started fighting. Ningyu, this dog seems to be on good terms with you? On the other side of the room, Li Tongtian pointed at the Dark Emperor, who was fighting with the black-robed martial artist, and frowned. He is very strong, but compared to the black-robed martial artist, he is still lacking. Don't call him dog, call him the Dark Emperor from now on, Ningyu said hurriedly. What a joke, the Dark Emperor had a bad temper. If he knew that Li Tongtian called him that, Li Tongtian would probably not have a good time. Dark Emperor? Li Tongtian was a little embarrassed and hesitated. That's right, his name is the Dark Emperor. That's what you'll call him from now on. Ningyu nodded and then turned his gaze to the battlefield. After refining 200,000 supreme primal crystals, the Dark Emperor's cultivation had advanced from the late primal core stage to the peak of the primal core stage. Although it was only a small increase, it was still a huge increase in the Dark Emperor's combat power. When he was in the late primal core stage, the Dark Emperor could fight and even kill a martial artist in the early stage of the Yin-Yang realm. However, against a martial artist in the middle stage of the Yin-Yang realm, he could only run away. But now, the Dark Emperor could fight with the black-robed martial artist in the middle stage of the Yin-Yang realm. At the very least, the black-robed martial artist would not be able to defeat the Dark Emperor in a short period of time. Zhaoliang, there seems to be some movement inside. At the same time, outside the palace, two martial artists in the half-step Yin-Yang realm were discussing. Among them, the slightly taller martial artist hesitated. Should we go in and take a look? Look at what? The Emperor personally said that unless the martial artist inside gives a specific signal, no matter what we hear, we are not to leave this place. The martial artist called Zhaoliang said coldly, Chao Qi, don't say that I didn't warn you. The Emperor is very concerned about this matter. If we mess it up, no one will be able to bear the consequences. I'm just saying, there's no need to make a fuss, Chao Qi said. Zhaoliang, what is the Emperor trying to do? One of the two martial artists is at the peak of the primal core stage and the other is at the late stage of the true martial realm. Then, Chao Qi lowered his voice and continued, as long as we capture the two of them and interrogate them, everything will be solved. Foolish, foolish, foolish beyond belief. Zhaoliang scolded. Don't tell me that the Emperor hasn't thought of what you can think of? Do your job honestly. I don't want to be punished by the Emperor because of you. Bang. While Zhaoliang and Chao Qi were arguing, the Dark Emperor seized the opportunity to force the black-robed martial artist back and landed beside Ningyu. This is so hard to deal with. Ningyu, can't you save some effort? You actually offended a martial artist in the middle stage of the Yin-Yang realm. The Dark Emperor was panting heavily. Obviously, he did not have the upper hand in the fight with the black-robed martial artist. Otherwise, given his nature, he would have mocked the black-robed martial artist long ago. Damn dog, take another move from me. Before Ningyu could reply to the Dark Emperor, the black-robed martial artist on the other side flew into a rage and charged at the Dark Emperor once again. F***CK, is there no end to this? The Dark Emperor gritted his teeth, but he knew that with his strength, it would be difficult to defeat the black-robed martial artist. Suddenly, Ningyu rolled his eyes and sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor. Dark Emperor, stop the black-robed martial artist, and buy me at least 3 minutes. Damn it, let me try. After cursing under his breath, the Dark Emperor leaped up and charged at the black-robed martial artist. Li Tongtian, hurry up and help the Dark Emperor while the effects of the drug in your body are still there. Remember, no matter what, you have to buy me 3 minutes. Ningyu's tone was unquestionable, and Li Tongtian was subtly affected. For some reason, Li Tongtian did not have any doubts. He immediately rose from the ground and joined the battle. The Dark Emperor's strength was only slightly lower than the black-robed martial artist, and he could hold on for 3 minutes. Now that Li Tongtian was here, not to mention 3 minutes, he could even hold on for 10 minutes. While the Dark Emperor and the others were fighting, Ningyu's expression turned serious. Because what he was about to do next might be a little crazy. Even if he succeeded, he might be hunted down by the Emperor. However, he did it without hesitation. Because if he did not do it, the 3 of them might die here today. Whether I can kill the black-robed martial artist with a single sword depends on this. Chapter 469. Hit. Inside the room, the Dark Emperor and Li Tongtian did not hold back at all. In order to hold off the black-robed martial artist for 3 minutes, both of them used their full strength. Rumble! Faced with the strong attacks of the Dark Emperor and Li Tongtian, the black-robed martial artist did not dare to be careless. He immediately used all his strength. The black-robed martial artist was a mid-stage yin-yang realm martial artist after all. His full strength caused the Dark Emperor and Li Tongtian to retreat several feet. If you know what's good for you, get out of my way. Otherwise, the black-robed martial artist said sinisterly. However, before he could finish his sentence, the Dark Emperor said coldly, "Old man, how dare you be so arrogant in front of your grandfather? Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? You can be forgiven for your sins." Hearing the Dark Emperor's words, the black-robed martial artist snorted coldly. Yuan Qi surged from his body, and a strong aura pressed down on the Dark Emperor. It's just a small trick. The Dark Emperor was least afraid of aura pressure. It could be said that ever since he advanced to the pinnacle of the primal core realm, he was completely immune to the aura pressure from martial artists below the advanced yin-yang realm. The black-robed martial artist was only of the intermediate yin-yang realm. How could his aura pressure have any effect on the Dark Emperor? Looks like you won't give up until you see your coffin. Forget it, I will do justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you, arrogant dog. The Dark Emperor's words obviously agitated the black-robed martial artist. His expression turned cold and his aura surged once again. Li Tongtian, take a few steps back. I want to see if this old man can defeat me in aura alone. The Dark Emperor waved his hand at Li Tongtian and said calmly, "All you have to do is stay here obediently and don't go anywhere." Understood. Li Tongtian was not a fool. He knew the difference between him and the black-robed martial artist. Even though he had advanced to the early yin-yang realm with the elixir, he could not even last 3 moves against the black-robed martial artist. Perhaps Li Tongtian's best choice now was to deal with the myriad of changes by remaining unchanging. TSK. Just then, the black-robed martial artist's aura surged to the limit and pressed down on the Dark Emperor. How comfortable! Under the pressure of the black-robed martial artist's powerful aura, not only did the Dark Emperor not feel uncomfortable, he even revealed an expression of enjoyment. At the same time, he provoked the black-robed martial artist. "Old man, did you not eat? Increase your aura a little more and let your grandfather enjoy it." Damn it! When had the black-robed martial artist ever suffered such humiliation? First, he was repelled by the black dog in front of him, and now he was ridiculed. An aunt could endure it, but an uncle couldn't. The black-robed cultivator cursed in a low voice. He quickly retracted his aura and rushed towards the Dark Emperor. Since he could not suppress the black dog in front of him with his aura, the black-robed cultivator simply unleashed a powerful attack. He wanted to defeat or even kill the Dark Emperor with brute force. Good timing! The Dark Emperor turned his head to look at Ningyu, who was still busy. Gritting his teeth, he advanced instead of retreating, clashing with the black-robed cultivator once more. A minute had passed after the commotion just now. In other words, the Dark Emperor only needed to hold on for 2 more minutes, and Ningyu's preparations would be complete. The Dark Emperor was confident that he could hold on for 2 minutes. Hiss, hiss. Ningyu did not pay attention to the fight between the Dark Emperor and the black-robed cultivator. At this moment, he quickly extended his palm and held the red demon sword in his hand. At the same time, the soul power in Ningyu's body surged out and flowed towards the red demon sword through his palm. Subsequently, Ningyu activated 4 illusory golden cores, intending to channel all the vitality within them into the red demon sword. In the first minute, Ningyu's peak rank 5 soul power in his body flowed into the red demon sword through his palm, with the exception of some that remained in his body. In the second minute, all the vitality within the 4 illusory golden cores flowed into the red demon sword. Swoosh. In the third minute, Ningyu rose from the ground with the red demon sword in his hand and joined the battle instantly. F***ck, Ningyu, what are you doing? Why are you only here now? Seeing Ningyu charging over, the Dark Emperor could not help but curse. Initially, he thought that holding off the black-robed cultivator for 2 minutes would be a piece of cake. Who would have thought that the black-robed cultivator would become more and more courageous as he fought? By the third minute, he was almost unable to hold on. Fortunately, Ningyu joined the battle in time and helped him relieve some of the pressure. Otherwise, he would definitely be severely injured. Cut the crap. You attack from the top and I'll attack from the bottom. You must give it your all. Ningyu did not want to waste any time and sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor. Try your best to attract the black-robed cultivator's attention. Whether or not we can defeat him depends on this. How confident are you? The Dark Emperor's heart skipped a beat and he asked hurriedly. 50%, Ningyu replied in a deep voice. 50%, huh? The Dark Emperor's expression changed slightly and he said coldly, That's enough. Ningyu, you must not disappoint me. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, the Dark Emperor moved instantly and used his agile tail to sweep at the black-robed cultivator's head. At the same time, Ningyu's eyes turned cold. Wielding the red demon sword, he slashed at the black-robed cultivator's lower body. Swoosh. On the other side, Li Tongtian gritted his teeth and joined the battle as well. There were still 3 minutes before the medicinal effects in his body dissipated. In other words, he could only maintain the early stage yin-yang realm for 3 minutes. Once the 3 minutes were up, he would return to his original state and his cultivation might even drop to a freezing point. 3 minutes was not short, but it was not long either. At the very least, Li Tongtian had to make good use of these 3 minutes to ensure that he could help Ningyu and the Dark Emperor. Scram! However, Li Tongtian was met with tragedy the moment he joined the battle. As the saying went, pick the weakest persimmon to crush. This was the black-robed cultivator's strategy. Seeing that Li Tongtian had joined the battle, he forced Ningyu and the Dark Emperor away. Then, he threw a punch that landed squarely on Li Tongtian's chest. Bang! The immense force caused Li Tongtian to retreat to the edge of the room before he could stabilize himself. Luckily, he had gathered all his yuan qi on his chest at the critical moment. Otherwise, this move from the black-robed cultivator would have been enough to make him suffer. After forcing Li Tongtian back with a single move, the black-robed cultivator was extremely satisfied and was slightly distracted. Now's the time. After the ruckus from Li Tongtian, Ningyu's eyes widened in surprise. The next moment, he took advantage of the short second that the black-robed cultivator was distracted to increase his speed to the maximum, even at the cost of burning his remaining soul power. Not good. 1 second was a very short period of time. The black-robed cultivator quickly realized that Ningyu was charging towards him with a red flying sword in his hand. However, Ningyu was too fast. By the time he reacted, Ningyu was already beside him. Furthermore, the red demon sword in his hand pierced forward. Poof! The sound of a flying sword piercing through flesh rang out in the room. Swoosh! Chapter 470. Tang Guding. At the critical moment, a small flying sword flew out from Ningyu's arms and collided with the cold gleam that the black-robed cultivator had sent out. A crisp sound rang out and a small green flying sword was sent crashing to the ground. On the other hand, there was a small red flying sword in Ningyu's hand. Good sword. The flying sword in Ningyu's hand was no ordinary flying sword, but the good sword of the Red Fiend's sword. Fortunately, I kept the good sword in my arms. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although he had blocked the black-robed cultivator's green flying sword, Ningyu still felt a lingering fear. If he had not kept the good sword on a whim, he might have been killed by the black-robed cultivator. Ha ha ha, old fart, To think that you would have such a day. Seeing the black-robed cultivator being struck by the Red Fiend's sword, the Dark Emperor laughed loudly and said, "Now that you've fallen into my hands, I'll make you wish you were dead." Tui, you think you can kill me with just the few of you? How naive. The black-robed cultivator did not seem to understand his current situation. He spat and said sinisterly, "I can leave this room any time I want." Swoosh. The moment he said that, the black-robed cultivator immediately leaped up, wanting to escape from the top of the room. When he came, the black-robed cultivator had descended from the top of the room. Now that he was leaving, he naturally wanted to leave from there. Don't you think it's a little too late to think of escaping now? How could the Dark Emperor give the black-robed cultivator a chance to leave the room? In the next moment, the Dark Emperor rose from the ground and turned into an afterimage. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the black-robed cultivator, blocking his path. Damn it! Looking at the Dark Emperor who had suddenly appeared in front of him, the black-robed cultivator's expression turned extremely cold. After cursing inwardly, the black-robed cultivator's fist brought with it a violent yuan-chi gale as it slammed toward the Dark Emperor's head. The black-robed cultivator's punch was extremely powerful. If the Dark Emperor was unlucky enough to be hit, he would be crippled even if he did not die. Not good. The Dark Emperor had not expected the black-robed cultivator to be able to execute such a powerful move after being struck in the chest by the Red Demon sword. His expression changed drastically, and without any time to think, he immediately retreated. "Ah, you are indeed a retarded dog. To think that I tricked you so easily. In the future, we will have." Seeing the Dark Emperor retreat, the black-robed cultivator instantly retracted his fist. Furthermore, the black-robed martial warriors first laughed loudly at the Dark Emperor, then raised his speed to the limit, wanting to escape through the passageway above the room. However, before the black-robed cultivator could reach the entrance of the passageway, he heard Ning Yu's words ringing in his ears. "You can use the endoscopy technique to look at your sea of knowledge and see if it's different from before." Hearing Ning Yu's words, the black-robed cultivator's expression darkened. He said coldly, "Trying to play tricks in front of me? You don't have to." The black-robed cultivator originally thought that Ning Yu was trying to blow him up. Who would have thought that as he spoke, he would taste something sweet in his throat and spit out a mouthful of dark red blood. "You, what did you do to me?" The black-robed cultivator was indeed a middle-stage yin-yang realm cultivator. After a short moment of shock, he immediately calmed down. "Hee, I didn't do anything to you. I just left some fun things in your sea of knowledge." Ning Yu laughed. "Fun things?" The black-robed cultivator was slightly stunned as he asked. "That's right, just some fun things." Ning Yu nodded and said, "Soul power and essence chi. Poochie." Hearing the first half of Ning Yu's sentence, the black-robed cultivator did not feel anything. However, when he heard the second half of Ning Yu's sentence, he could not help but spit out another mouthful of blood. If not for the black-robed cultivator stabilizing his body in time, he might have fallen from the sky. "Ning Yu, why are you talking nonsense with him? Hurry up and kill him." The Dark Emperor had long wanted to kill the black-robed cultivator, so he was clearly a little impatient. "There's no hurry. I'll ask him a few questions first." Ning Yu waved his hand, indicating for the Dark Emperor not to cause trouble. Then, he said to the black-robed cultivator, "Tell me the person who ordered you to do this, and I can spare your life." "I, Tengu, have always been a Lone Ranger," the black-robed cultivator said in a deep voice. "So, your name is Tengu?" Ning Yu said indifferently, "Since you're not willing to tell me who ordered you to do this, I can only kill you." "You dare to kill me?" Tengu said coldly, "This is the palace. If I die here for no reason, you won't be able to explain it to His Majesty." Ning Yu shrugged and said, "Although this is the palace, this room is where Li Tongtian and I rest. You barged in for no reason. Even if I kill you, His Majesty won't say anything. After saying that, Ningyu gave the Dark Emperor a look, indicating for him to kill Tengu. The Dark Emperor had been waiting for this moment. After receiving Ningyu's approval, he leaped up and charged towards Tengu. Seeing the Dark Emperor approaching him, Tengu's expression turned uglier and uglier. Even his heart sank to the bottom. He had Ningyu's soul power and vitality in his consciousness. If he dared to act rashly, Ningyu would be the first to not let him off. However, if he didn't escape, he would become a live target and there was a high chance that he would be killed by the Dark Emperor. Swish! Swish! Just as Tengu was at a loss of what to do, two figures swept in from the passage above the room. After these two figures appeared, without saying a word, they immediately launched a powerful attack at the Dark Emperor. F***CK. Feeling the two powerful attacks coming at him, the Dark Emperor couldn't help but curse and quickly retreated. Bang! Bang! However, the Dark Emperor's attention was completely on Tengu. The sudden appearance of these two martial artists was clearly out of his expectations. The outcome was obvious. The Dark Emperor was hit in the chest by two fists and his body fell backward like a kite with a broken string. Swoosh! Ningyu reacted quickly and caught the Dark Emperor just as he was about to fall to the ground. In the next moment, Ningyu released his perception and began to check on the Dark Emperor's injuries. When he saw the condition of the Dark Emperor's body, Ningyu's expression turned completely gloomy. Although the Dark Emperor's injuries weren't fatal, he would need at least a few days to recover to his peak. How could Ningyu tolerate the Dark Emperor suffering such a serious injury as soon as he woke up? Moreover, Ningyu was very familiar with the two martial artists in front of him. They were none other than the two gatekeepers at the entrance of this luxurious palace. Half-step Yin-Yang realm cultivation. Ningyu, this is the Emperor. After severely injuring the Dark Emperor, Zhao Liang pointed at Tengu and said loudly. However, before he could finish his sentence, he heard a scream. When the scream fell into Zhao Liang's ears, his eyes widened and revealed a look of fear. He turned his body slightly and saw Tengu beside him holding his head with an extremely painful expression. Chapter 471. The Ninth Prince. Well, you came at the right time. He trespassed into the palace and has been subdued by Li Tongtian and I. Ningyu pointed at Tengu and asked, should we kill him on the spot? This, Zhao Yang's mouth was slightly agape, a little confused. He and Xiao Qi had been guarding the entrance of the main hall with their attention focused on the inside of the hall, waiting for a specific signal from Tengu. But after a long time, they did not even hear a sound, let alone a signal. Just as they were feeling puzzled, an anxious voice rang in their minds. Go to the room where Ningyu and Li Tongtian are and save Tengu. Hearing this voice, Zhao Liang and Xiao Qi did not dare to delay and immediately entered the main hall. Fortunately, they came in time and forced the black dog to retreat, otherwise Tengu would have been killed by the black dog. Originally, they thought that after saving Tengu, they could smoothly take him away. Who would have thought that Ningyu would appear out of nowhere, first attacking Tengu's soul power, and then asking them a question? Ningyu, this is... Zhao Liang continued after a short moment of confusion. I know, he is a cultivator who trespassed into the palace. Ningyu interrupted Zhao Liang again and said calmly, fine, since you do not want to do it, I will do it for you. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Ningyu turned into a shadow and appeared in front of Tengu in an instant. In the next moment, Ningyu raised his palm and slapped Tengu's face. Stop! How dare you! Don't touch him! Seeing Ningyu's strong attack, Zhao Liang, Xiao Qi, and even Tengu shouted. Slap! However, their shouts did not affect Ningyu. Ningyu's palm landed heavily on Tengu's face. In an instant, 5 blood-red palm prints appeared on Tengu's face, and traces of blood seeped out. right? Trespassing into the palace is a capital offense. Do you want to do it, or do you want me to do it? After slapping Tengu's face, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and said directly, "Forget it. I'll help him to the end." However, before Zhao Liang and Chao Qi could answer, Ningyu continued, "I'll deal with this yin-yang intermediate stage Tengu for you." As soon as the word go left his mouth, Ningyu's eyes flashed with coldness. Immediately after, he rose from the ground. While controlling Tengu's sea of consciousness, his fist contained a berserk fluctuation of yuan qi as it ruthlessly smashed towards Tengu's head. This punch of Ningyu's was extremely powerful and heavy. With Tengu's current state, if he was unlucky enough to be hit in the head, he would most likely die. Haha, where it is possible to forgive, one should forgive. How about young hero Ning sell me some face and spare Tengu? However, before Ningyu's fist could land on Tengu's body, a faint laughter sounded out from outside the room. Creak. Then, the door was slowly pushed open, and a young martial artist walked in with a smile. Ningyu raised his eyebrows. His fist stopped 3 centimeters away from Tengu's forehead. Ninth Prince. Ningyu didn't know this young martial artist, but Zhao Liang and Chao Qi clearly knew him. Among the many princes, there were 2 most mysterious princes. One was the 9th prince, and the other was the 13th prince. Among them, the 13th prince was often not in the capital, so very few people knew his specific cultivation and strength. However, the 9th prince was different. Among the many princes, in terms of martial arts strength, he could be ranked in the top 3. "You're Ningyu." After entering the room, the 9th prince's gaze fell on Ningyu. He quickly arrived at Ningyu's side. He first looked Ningyu up and down, and then faintly said, "Tengu trespassing here was completely unintentional. You're the 9th prince?" Before Ningyu could speak, Li Tongtian said in a low voice, "If not for the fact that Ningyu and I are strong, we would have been killed by Tengu long ago. Don't you think it's a little ridiculous that you're trying to save Tengu just because of an unintentional act?" Li Tongtian was filled with anger. It was one thing for him to be bullied by Tengu. After all, he was not strong enough and had no choice. However, the 9th prince's cultivation was the same as his, at the peak of the primal core stage. Why was he acting so tough? In other words, where did he get his courage from? "Li Tongtian, your strength is SOSO. The 9th prince glanced at Li Tongtian with a look of disdain. "Let me tell you now, why do I have the right to say such things?" Whoosh! With that, the 9th prince dashed forward and appeared in front of Li Tongtian in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the 9th prince threw a punch at Li Tongtian's chest at an astonishing speed. Oh no! Looking at the fist that was getting bigger in his eyes, Li Tongtian's face was filled with fear. When he was at his peak, he naturally would not be afraid of the 9th prince. In fact, he would even spar with the 9th prince. But now, the effects of the drug had worn off and his strength had dropped to a freezing point. It could be said that the 9th prince only needed to use 10% of his strength to easily defeat him. Bam! However, just as Li Tongtian was about to lose all hope, Ningyu suddenly retreated from Tengu's side and appeared in front of him in an instant. Furthermore, Ningyu threw a punch that collided with the 9th prince's fist. The 2 fists collided and a dull thud could be heard. Immediately, the 9th prince's expression changed drastically as he retreated quickly. "9th prince, aren't you a little too arrogant to attack me just because of a disagreement?" After repelling the 9th prince with one move, Ningyu's tone was cold. "Li Tongtian and I are good friends. By attacking him in front of me, you are clearly looking down on me. Also, Tengu launched a strong attack on Li Tongtian and I. If we had not used all our trump cards, we would have been killed by him by now. You want us to let him go with just a few words? That's too casual. At the very least, you should give me a reason to let Tengu go." Ha ha ha! Ning Yu's string of words landed in the ninth prince's ears. He was slightly taken aback before he burst into laughter. After laughing, the ninth prince's expression turned completely cold. You and Li Tongtian are good friends, and I am also good friends with Tengu. I wonder if this reason is sufficient? Not very. Ning Yu shook his head. If you still can't give me a good reason, I can only send Tengu on his way. I don't have any other reasons. If you want to kill Tengu, you can try. At this moment, the ninth prince had surprisingly calmed down. He was terrifyingly calm. He smiled and said, "Don't say I didn't warn you. Tengu is not only good friends with me but also with my father." You talk too much. Although the Dark Emperor was severely injured, it was still very easy for him to deal with the powerless Tengu. The ninth prince's laughable reason infuriated the Dark Emperor. He growled before he rose from the ground and charged toward Tengu. Bam! Chapter 472. How dare you? Wait a moment. Seeing that the Dark Emperor wanted to kill Tengu, Ning Yu waved his hand, signaling him to stop first. Afterwards, Ning Yu stood in front of the ninth prince and lightly said, "Ninth prince, I believe that Tengu is your friend, but if you say that he is the emperor's friend, I beg to differ. Li Tongtian and I ranked first in the alchemy and martial arts examinations. We've already earned the right to enter Frost Manor. Why would the emperor send someone to kill us? With his majesty's strength, killing us would be as easy as flipping his hand. There's no need for him to wait until now." At this point, Ning Yu paused for a moment and then continued, "It's fine that you slandered me, but you maliciously slandered the emperor. What is your intention?" You. The ninth prince was already somewhat angry when he saw Tengu Town's miserable state. Now that he heard Ning Yu's words, he was so angry that his face turned green. "Ning Yu, don't think that I don't dare to kill you." The ninth prince's face was livid. He let out a low roar and immediately charged toward Ning Yu at an astonishing speed. Heaven's wrongs can be forgiven, but one's own wrongs cannot be avoided. Looking at the approaching ninth prince, Ning Yu shook his head. "Kacha!" In the next instant, a clear voice resounded from within the room, and then the entire room fell silent. The ninth prince, who was speeding away, suddenly stopped. Then, the ninth prince slowly turned around. At the end of the room, a figure was lying on the ground. His face was pale, and his aura had long since dissipated. "Ka." The ninth prince's expression immediately darkened. He clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard, and a cold expression appeared on his face. The martial artist lying on the ground was none other than the Yin-Yang realm middle-stage martial artist, Tengu. Just now, the Dark Emperor had received Ning Yu's instructions, so without saying a word, he directly used his tail to break Tengu's neck. After breaking Tengu's neck, the Dark Emperor wrapped him up with his tail and threw him to the end of the room. Go! Seeing Tengu lying on the ground, Zhao Liang could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. His face was filled with shock. Tengu, who was in the middle stage of the Yin-Yang realm, was killed just like that? The shock on Chao Qi's face was no less than Zhao Liang's. Both of them were at the half-step Yin-Yang state. Their original order was to cooperate with Tengu. Who would have thought that Tengu would be killed by Ning Yu and Li Tongtian? No, it should be Ning Yu and a black dog. At this moment they were very confused. Ning Yu and the black dog's cultivation were not very high, so how could they kill Tengu, who was in the middle stage of the Yin-Yang realm? Ning Yu is indeed terrifying. His control over soul force and Yuan Qi has already reached the pinnacle. Li Tongtian was already rooted to the ground. He mumbled to himself, "When I get back this time, I need to cultivate my soul power properly. I can also sign up for the alchemy competition. Ha ha ha, it's been a long time since I've had such an enjoyable battle. Today is really refreshing." The Dark Emperor was a little arrogant. He first laughed out loud, then said, "If there's something like this in the future, I'll be the first to participate." "Forget it. If it wasn't for me, you would have been killed by Tengu. How dare you boast so shamelessly? Aren't you ashamed?" Ningyu mercilessly exposed the Dark Emperor's daydream and said, "Go back to where you came from. It's not safe here." "Hey, Ningyu, how can you say that? What do you mean I'm boasting? Then let me ask you, was Tengu killed by me?" Hearing Ningyu's words, the Dark Emperor was unhappy and shouted, "You killed him. You're amazing, alright." Ningyu knew the Dark Emperor's temper very well. He had no choice but to say it. However, before Ningyu could finish his sentence, the ninth prince said coldly, "Don't play dumb here. You killed Tengu today. Even if father knew about this, he wouldn't." Cough cough. Sometimes things in this world were just so coincidental. Just a moment ago, the ninth prince had interrupted Ningyu's speech. Now, he was interrupted by two dry coughs. Initially, the ninth prince was furious when he was interrupted. However, when he saw the figure at the door, he immediately calmed down. "Father, why are you here? Why can't I be here? If I didn't come, who knows what kind of trouble you're going to get yourself into?" Ouyangba wore a cold expression. As soon as he entered the room, he scolded the ninth prince. "Hurry up and go back to face the wall and reflect on your mistake. You can only come out when you admit your mistakes." After scolding the ninth prince, Ouyangba glanced at Ningyu and said, "Tengu is indeed a member of the royal family. As for why he trespassed here, I'll need to investigate further. Emperor, Tengu has been killed. In my opinion, there's no need to investigate further," Ningyu said in a calm tone. "If there's nothing else, you and Li Tongtian should have a good rest. I'll send someone to pick you up early tomorrow morning." After saying this, Ouyangba turned around and headed out of the room. However, as soon as Ouyangba turned around, he could not help but glance at the Dark Emperor. Furthermore, as soon as he saw the Dark Emperor, a cold grin appeared on his face. Although the grin disappeared as soon as it appeared, Ningyu still managed to catch it. Did he discover the Dark Emperor's true identity? Ningyu had a bad feeling, but at the same time, he felt that it was unbelievable. Since the Dark Emperor had reached the peak primal core realm, the aura of the celestial devouring hound had almost been completely concealed. The remaining aura of the celestial devouring hound was extremely difficult for ordinary cultivators to discover. At the very least, with Ouyangba's cultivation and senses, it was impossible for him to discover the Dark Emperor's true identity. Forget it, things will eventually sort themselves out. The most important thing now is to let the Dark Emperor rest in the storage ring and recover to his peak condition as soon as possible. Ningyu was not an indecisive person. Even if the Emperor had discovered that the Dark Emperor was a celestial devouring hound, he would not be able to leave the heavily guarded palace. Let's not talk about whether there would be another Yin-Yang realm intermediate stage martial artist like Tengu. When the Emperor glanced at the Dark Emperor, Ningyu noticed a soul force probing him and the Dark Emperor without restraint. The soul force was extremely powerful, such that even the Dark Emperor had failed to notice it. If Ningyu did not have the senses of his past life, he would not have noticed it either. Whoosh! After Ouyangba left the room, Zhao Liang and Chao Qi did not dare to stay any longer. The two of them hurriedly lifted Tengu up and left the room. "Ningyu, don't you think there's something fishy about this?" After Ouyangba and the others left, Li Tongtian said in a deep voice, "In my opinion, Tengu must be Shu." Ningyu immediately put a finger on his lips to stop Li Tongtian. Seeing Ningyu's actions, Li Tongtian forcefully swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. "You don't have to say it, I have the same thought as you." Chapter 473. Early Preparation. What do we do now? Li Tongtian was no ordinary martial artist after all. After a short moment of shock, he calmed down. "Wait. Ningyu said in a low voice. Wait. Li Tongtian frowned slightly, feeling a little confused. Now that they were being watched, instead of thinking of a way to leave the palace, they were waiting here. What was Ningyu up to? That's right, wait. Ningyu nodded. The palace must be heavily guarded now. Given our strength, it's basically impossible for us to leave. Don't forget, I'm also here. The Dark Emperor was unhappy. Ningyu had obviously excluded him. You're seriously injured now, so you're considered half. Ningyu glared fiercely at the Dark Emperor and said, all we can do is wait and deal with the changes by staying the same. No, I have to think of a way to contact the outside world. Although what Ningyu said made sense, Li Tongtian did not want to sit around and wait for his death. The next moment, he flicked his sleeves and a beam of cold light shot out towards the passageway above the room. Pust pust. However, there seemed to be a transparent barrier at the entrance of the passageway. The moment the beam of cold light came into contact with the barrier, it disappeared from the world. Li Tongtian, don't waste your energy. This room is completely sealed. Ningyu found a random chair and sat down. He shrugged and said, if I'm not wrong, you can't even get out of the room. I don't believe it. Li Tongtian was a straightforward person. After the beam of cold light was swallowed by the barrier, he threw a few more beams of cold light. Pust 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 pust. The result was not unexpected. The cold light he threw out was completely devoured by the barrier. Humph. After the beams of cold light were swallowed, Li Tongtian snorted and walked towards the door. Soon, Li Tongtian arrived at the door. Poof! This time, Li Tongtian's luck was much worse than before. Just as his palm touched the door handle, it was as though he was struck by lightning. His body could not help but twitch. Bang! Fortunately, Ningyu dashed forward immediately. He raised his right leg and kicked Li Tongtian's buttocks, waking him up. Otherwise, Li Tongtian would convulse for at least a quarter of an hour. I told you, this room is completely sealed, but you didn't listen. Ningyu grumbled. If it happens again, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to save you. After saying this, Ningyu closed his eyes and quietly released his perception. Ningyu knew that Li Tongtian was a smart man. After failing twice in a row, he would definitely realize that something was wrong and would not do anything stupid again. Therefore, Ningyu began to release his perception, wanting to detect if there were any experts around the palace. To be more precise, he wanted to see if there were any experts who had noticed this room. Who? In the room, Ningyu was scanning the surroundings for any martial artists, while Li Tongtian was much more well-behaved. After being taught a lesson twice, he obediently stayed in the room and did not make any more risky attempts. As for the Dark Emperor, he took out a few supreme yuan crystals out of nowhere and squatted in a corner to chew on them. Gasp! After about 10 minutes, Ningyu took in a deep breath. At the same time, his eyes widened and were filled with shock. This is the palace indeed. There are so many experts. Ningyu's expression was solemn. Actually, it was no wonder that Ningyu's expression was solemn. In the short span of 10 minutes, he had detected at least 5 powerful auras around the palace. Among these 5 auras, the weakest was at the advanced yin-yang realm. There was even an aura that had reached the pinnacle of yin-yang realm. Ningyu was not too worried about the auras of the pinnacle of yin-yang realm martial artists. However, other than the pinnacle of yin-yang realm martial artists, he vaguely detected an even more terrifying existence. Furthermore, that terrifying existence had already locked its aura on him. There's a high possibility that it's an existence that has surpassed yin-yang realm. Ningyu was extremely shocked and maintained a posture, not daring to act recklessly. Swoosh! Soon, the terrifying aura retreated from Ningyu and stopped on Li Tongtian. As Li Tongtian's soul perception wasn't very strong, he did not realize that anyone had noticed him. To describe Li Tongtian right now, the ignorant were fearless. Next, the terrifying aura changed its target and landed on the Dark Emperor. The Dark Emperor was the emperor of the heaven-swallowing Hound clan after all. He was very sensitive to auras and soul perception. Therefore, when the terrifying aura noticed him, he realized that something was wrong. The Dark Emperor wanted to speak, but Ningyu shook his head at him. As the aura was extremely terrifying, even Ningyu did not dare to speak, afraid that he would be discovered. Although the Dark Emperor was a little rash, he was still rather rational when it came to big matters. After following Ningyu for so long, the Dark Emperor could already understand most of Ningyu's actions. Voila! After about half an hour, Ningyu felt the powerful pressure on his body dissipate. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief and revealed a relieved expression. Ningyu, who was that powerful warrior just now? The Dark Emperor still had a lingering fear in his heart as he asked. How the hell would I know? Ningyu rolled his eyes at the Dark Emperor and immediately split out a portion of his perception to pay attention to the changes in the room. This was because Ningyu did not want to waste time. He wanted to use the next few hours to properly cultivate the Netherworld Samsara Palm and the Supreme Nine Purities Sword Art. Previously at the Ivory City's Zhang family, just as Ningyu wanted to cultivate the sixth style of the Netherworld Samsara Palm, he was interrupted by Zhang Heng of the capital's Zhang family, causing him to be unable to cultivate it successfully. Right now, he still had a decent chance. Most importantly, he did not know what dangers he would face next. It was extremely important for Ningyu to raise his strength at this time. The sixth style of the Netherworld Samsara Palm, Samsara Palm. Ningyu first recalled the cultivation method of the Samsara Palm in his mind, then the essence in his sea of consciousness surged out and wrapped around his wrist. Go! With a low roar, Ningyu quickly pushed his palm out and a palm print appeared in an instant. Chi! The palm print had just struck out when it dissipated. Seeing this, Ningyu slowly shook his head and once again infused the essence in his sea of consciousness into his palm and pushed out a second time. Chi! The second palm print did not seem to improve, and it still dissipated as soon as it was sent out. After failing to cultivate 2 palm prints in a row, Ningyu was not discouraged. Instead, he attacked with palm prints again and again. Chi. In the next 3 hours, Ningyu did not know how many palm prints he had sent out, but without exception, all of them dissipated. Not a single one lasted to the end. Samsara Palm. On the 100th palm, Ningyu's eyes turned cold. He infused a wave of soul force into his palm and pushed it out. Whoosh whoosh. The power of Ningyu's palm was extremely strong. The surrounding air was compressed and dispersed in all directions. Even Li Tongtian was captivated by this palm print. Break! Crack! In the next instant, Ningyu let out a low roar and a crisp crack sounded. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.